were back in Australia. So Al Jawsari starts at the end of the pit lane, and he will be sitting there an awful long time, won't he? He's put a full wet setup on the car, but he'll be starting at the back, and at least with a safety car situation. And of course the race starts now. There is no formation lap, and that's why Al Jawsari will be able to just get onto the back of the field, but he will be sitting there a while those wet tyres lose crucial temperature. But I don't think too many of them. Somebody's very slow away at the back of the field. I think it's the other Virgin. I'm looking in the far distance.
Well, actually, this is working out not too bad for the Toro Rosso, because if this had been a normal grid start, of course, he's not allowed to leave the end of the pit lane until the last car.
We are going to start on extreme wets behind the safety car, but we're not expecting rain until 15 minutes into the race.
Okay, well, that information, first part, Michael knows that already. He understands the rules when it comes to safety car. And the second part sends a shiver down my spine, because I remember being in Grand Prix where I had messages from engineers saying, stay out, the radar tells us it's going to stop raining in 2.5 minutes. 10 minutes later, I'm dragging it out of the gravel and the rain's heavier. Yes. You cannot accurately give information like that. I think that's misleading to the driver. You're better saying nothing than, if you were to say, we know it's raining 100 metres from the circuit because we've got a guy standing out there, his head's getting wet, then that's good information. But to give radar information based on 15 minutes, that's a bit dangerous.
So how quickly do you think, there's a confirmation that the DRS, the rear wing for higher straight line speeds, is disabled at this point because they're all on wet tyres. That's part of the rules. How quickly would you bring that safety car in?
I think pretty much at the end of this first complete lap.
Me too.
I think the drivers, this is really good for them to get a sighter. They see where the standing water is. This track will dry out pretty quickly when you've got all of those cars running at speed.
Yeah.
And they'll be sucking the water literally out of the tarmac and chucking up into the air.
I started a race in Brands Hatch last weekend with my son in some Radical V8s, and it was much wetter than that. Couldn't see where we were going, but we were still going for it. I personally think the race should have started properly, but that's my view, and I'm not sitting out there.
If I can just take the time to finish my sentence on the Toro Rosso, if they'd had to start from a normal grid start, he would have had to wait until the last car passes the end of the start-finish line, the end of the pit lane, before he would then be able to join the race. Of course, now he's able to run round right with the pack, and technically, as soon as he goes across the start-finish line, he can make a pass into turn one. So, double good decision from Toro Rosso, potentially.
Yeah. And we saw Alonso then trying the outside line of turn two, the karting line, some would call it, where there tends to be more grip, because where the rubber is laid on the racing line, put a bit of water on the top of it, and it becomes as slick as you like, slippery as anything you could imagine. So you tend to try and stay away from the normal racing line at that point. It has to be said that the TV cameras can always see better than the drivers, because you're looking down through a few meters of spray. They're looking along maybe through 50 to 100 meters of spray. So it does, rest assured, look a lot more difficult from the driver's position.
Well,
but it wasn't supposed to be easy.
Yeah, no, indeed. But I think that's quite a good camera angle, because like the driver, the camera doesn't have a window wiper. It does actually have a little roll of film which will just move across any moment, I'm sure, and clear that screen. But this is one of the biggest difficulties in the way. As you'll remember, Martin, it's visibility. It's not dealing with the reduced amount of grip, because we've all raced lower formulas that probably have less grip than a Formula One car in the wet. But not being able to see where you're going, not being able to spot your braking, is the big challenge in the wet. And the people that have the benefit, of course, at the moment are the first few cars running there. So we've got Vettel, Fernando Alonso and Felipe Massa, and then once you get past those first three cars, it'll be a blanket of spray running into the first corner.
And 25 minutes past the start of the race, so in 15 to 20 minutes, as we said, 15 to 20 minutes, rain should be coming reasonably heavy.
Now, as I was walking to the grid, I saw Paul from Red Bull being sent to the far end of the circuit. I think Red Bull have got 2 or 3 people out there, as I'm sure most of the teams have, weather spotting, checking the track out for standing water, but also looking at the sky, because obviously when the rain turns up, it comes in on a certain corner of the track. And Ted's got some news for us.
Yeah, Martin, it looks pretty well, pretty clear and bright down here in the pits. So I'm looking towards the weather is coming in from downtown Montreal, so it's kind of the backside of the circuit. I can't see anything at the moment, but 15 minutes is a long time. Just the sign of some teams readying their pit guys with some intermediates. So thinking maybe when the safety car comes in, to put intermediates on if they fancy a gamble, but just to go through the people who we know have sort of wet setups. The McLarens, as we've been saying early on, they've got a wet style bit of rear wing on, but pure wet setups. Alguersuari, Di Resta.
Conditions okay? I mean, it's wet, but it's normal. Visibility is okay?
Well, that's a rehearsed. Are you down on that, Ted?
Yes, so of course Lewis Hamilton wants to get going because they've got a kind of a wet setup on that. But the other ones, Alguersuari, Di Resta, Heidfeld, both Williams, Barrichello and Maldonado, and both Virgins, D'Ambrosio and Glock.
That you think went quite a long way towards a wet setup.
Yes, we do, yep.
Yeah.
So watch out for them when this safety car comes in.
Well, interestingly, when we were talking with Sam Michael from Williams earlier, there isn't the big split between dry and wet setup around this circuit. One of the things that he reminded us of is the fact that on this circuit, very high top speeds, not so many fast corners, so you run less camber, which is exactly the same sort of thing you would do for wet setup. They're running, in the case of Williams, the same wings that they had in the Monaco Grand Prix, so they can't get any more downforce on the car, and clearly there's not enough standing water to worry about having to raise the ride height of your car. And softening springs and roll bars is pretty much a thing of the past. Downforce is still king in the wet, so it's just about trying to balance out any aero shift that you get when you put the wet tyres on. It used to be the case in some cars, and you put wets on the car, it would actually increase the overall downforce for some bizarre reason. Maybe it's to do with the way that the air separates off the wet tyres. Yeah,
I think it comes off the sidewalls. But the putting a set of wets on automatically raises the ride height of the car, doesn't it? So they can clear any standing water.
It does indeed, Martin. As you well know, it raises that car up a few millimetres. I think it's about 5 millimetres.
Yeah,
and then you've got the tread depth as well of the tyre, so overall it's a significant raising of that plank.
Safety car is in this lap. Thank goodness we're going to have a race. And so obviously they're all in the order they lined up on the grid, and the lights will go out on the top of that safety car anytime soon, which is the signal to Sebastian Vettel that he will progressively become the pace setter, and he'll want to back it up a little bit so he can give that SLS, a car that if you drove it on the road would absolutely terrify you how fast it would go. And the Formula One cars are in second gear trying not to bump into the back of it. But such is the grip and pace and speed of Formula One cars, but not while they're behind the safety car. So we're on lap 4. All of these laps count in the Grand Prix. And of course they've saved fuel as well, but that doesn't matter anymore. There's no refueling during the Grand Prix. It means they can run higher engine modes later on. But they haven't been able to charge their KERS systems at all, David. And I was hearing earlier on today that if you let the batteries go cold on those things, you can't use them for the rest of the race. So KERS might not be much of a factor today.
Well, absolutely. And I also heard that you might not want to run the KERS in wet conditions because of the effect it has on under-rotating the rear axle when it's harvesting and charging the battery. But no rain at the moment, and this looks like we're gearing up here. Sebastian Vettel can control the pace now. The safety car's well out of the way, so he dictates the pace from this point on. And he's gone early.
He's gone early, but Alonso's gone with him. There is no overtaking until they get to the first safety car line, which is there, and that is why Alonso fancied a bit of a look, and Vettel's gone too deep into the corner. Alonso's right behind him still. So they could overtake into that final corner, and Vettel knew that, but so did Alonso. Alonso goes to the right. Vettel has the turning point to the corner, though. And behind him, we've got a McLaren right up alongside, and he's touched. Webber is round. Mark Webber, and that's Lewis Hamilton. So Mark Webber keeps the engine running. He'll fall almost to the back of the field. And it was Hamilton getting right up the inside of him. He's always in the wars, is Lewis, and that won't go down very well. So this is on board then with Lewis. He's now behind the Mercedes of, we think, Rosberg. I think that's Rosberg in front of him. We'll see as they go
Michael
through.
Schumacher.
Yeah, it's Schumi then through. So, and Hamilton's Button's gone deep. Yeah, Button's gone too deep into the corner. McLaren's line astern. And Schumacher drives completely around the outside. So now Rosberg is in front of Michael Schumacher and now the McLarens, and Lewis as well as through past Button and fancies a look at the back of Rosberg. They're struggling so much for grip. They're all over the show trying to slow the cars down for the slow car. It's not about visibility, it's about no tyre temperature after cruising behind the safety car. Hamilton then up the outside of Michael Schumacher. Will he try and drive clean around the outside? There's a bit of room to breathe there, and further back down the field there's Mark Webber. So he dropped a long way down the field, did Webber. And on board then with Hamilton as they head towards the last chicane. Lewis Hamilton, there's not a lot of space up the inside there. So Hamilton ahead of Button now. It's Rosberg ahead of Michael Schumacher, and we'll pick them up as they go over the line for the running order. Vettel leads by 2 seconds from Alonso, then Massa, then Rosberg, Schumacher, Hamilton, Button. And up in 8th place is Paul di Resta, and still they're going at it there. Still Michael Schumacher defending hard against Lewis Hamilton. Rosberg then having a tremendous start up in 4th place. The 2 Ferraris now line astern. You'd have to say Massa looking slightly more comfortable, 3/10 quicker on that first lap. But Vettel absolutely bolted up front, didn't he? He's gone at the moment.
Yeah, a great start from Sebastian Vettel. It looked like he'd actually gone a bit too deep into that last chicane, but he found his feet into the first corner. And at this point, he's got clean air, good visibility, and he's using that to his advantage. Now look, Lewis Hamilton here on board. See Michael Schumacher having a bit of oversteer coming off turn 6. Good drive from the Mercedes though, and you see that McLaren isn't able to capitalise. But Michael getting off the braking, off the rubber on the way into that corner, but has a bit of a moment. So Lewis Hamilton will be well positioned as he comes out of the chicane in the run down to turn 10. We saw him on the previous lap look down the outside of Michael. Let's see if he tries the same line again. Michael goes to the inside. Once again, Lewis gets wide and Michael comes across. You can see he's pushed Lewis wide.
Yeah, and Lewis will lose out to Button, and will he lose out to anybody else? And Michael very much squeezed him onto the grass there. Did he push him onto the grass? We'll have to have another look at it, but I don't think there was any bad play going on there, as Alonso then really struggling to keep Massa behind him. Vettel's got half the pit straight advantage now. And this is a replay of the start, because they could overtake into the last corner, because that's the first safety car line. Vettel nearly outbraked himself, and there then is the contact behind between Hamilton and Webber. Will there be any steward's inquiry on that one? And Button then back ahead, and this is a replay then from on board with Lewis Hamilton. So Mark Webber
gave him space.
He gave him space, you're absolutely right. He gave him space, and then Lewis just sort of understeered into him, didn't he?
Incredibly difficult conditions for both the drivers. So we can actually see, Martin, as we're watching that, and Marshall is out in the middle of the track at the last chicane picking up a piece of debris. He's thankfully safely out, as we see Mark Webber now facing the wrong way, getting a view of the racing field that he didn't want to see today, and able to rejoin. But very disappointing start for Mark.
Now this is where Michael started to take his line for the corner. Lewis was skating down the outside, and he's lost that place to Button, but he only lost 1 place. He's 3.3 ahead of Kobayashi. Vettel leads by 4.2 seconds now, and Alonso struggling in these conditions. You almost sense that if Massa passed him, he'd be gone. Rosberg looking more comfortable. Now they've dropped the McLarens as they are now squabbling with each other. Kobayashi just behind them. Heidfeld 9th, Maldonado 10th. Paul di Resta has dropped down to 13th somewhere, and we're watching Mark Webber.
No, that's Sebastian Vettel has missed the chicane.
Yeah, Webber is in 12th place. So Vettel then,
that's down at 8 and 9. He went straight over the grass. He picked a place where there's runoff, so that was fortunate.
And Webber and Hamilton under investigation for that first corner. And will Lewis Hamilton get another drive-through penalty? What do you think?
Well, I think in that case, there's no question. If you see McLaren's touch. That is, well, Lewis Hamilton obviously with suspension damage, puncture. I'd be surprised if he makes it round to back into the pits. But the problem in those conditions is Jenson Button can't see in his mirrors. There's so much spray coming off the front axle that any visibility you have is just cancelled. And this is just incredible. It was Lewis seems to be touching with Michael, or almost touching with Michael, and then getting together with his teammate. Will there be a safety car?
Well, it's a suspension broken, isn't it? Oh no, it's just a wheel rim, isn't it? More like it looks like he went against the pit wall. Let's hear what Jenson thought.
What is he doing?
I don't think he'll get an answer to that question.
I think he was trying to pass you, Jenson, but Jenson, obviously, as you say, you can see nothing out of those mirrors. They're about
Safety car out.
Safety car is out. I would imagine because of the debris on the pit straight, would you say?
Well, there's no question about that. The other thing is, why has Lewis parked the car in the middle of turn 5? You know, he had an opportunity in the way into the second chicane to park it. He had an opportunity just before that barrier to know where to park it. And this is difficult times for McLaren.
It's hard enough out there without running into your teammate. You had that a couple of times at McLaren, didn't you? You and Mika?
It is the one thing you'll want to avoid at all costs, is crashing your teammate. Unfortunately, I took Mika out in Austria when he was in pole position, and to add insult to injury, I finished second in the race rather than winning it, so it was a double whammy of disappointment.
But you're right, other than sort of parking it across the start-finish line.
Button in the pits, he's coming in under safety car, so Jenson Button coming in either for checks on his car, so get the replay.
So Lewis comes off the last chicane much faster. Jenson's making his way on what is the normal line, and it was the merest of touch, wasn't it, actually? Well, Lewis will say he should have seen me coming. He was slow off the corner. Intermediate tyres, were they not, going on the McLaren there? Hopefully Ted was down there. We'll try and find out. But it looks to me as if Jenson's gone early on a set of inters, which, providing he can keep temperature in them. Ted?
That's absolutely correct, yes. Jens Button has gone for intermediates. I think McLaren feel that he's already so far down the field, they might as well try something different, and no sign of the more rain at the moment. Ferrari also out in the pit lane.
Thanks, Ted. So, Button then the first man onto the inters. Here's another replay of the contact.
Well, here we are. You can see that Lewis gets a much better drive off the corner. Could have used Kerrs there. And then, obviously, Jenson comes across to take the normal line, which is to pull across towards the pit wall. And he's unsighted. I would love to get some... Well, here's the view from behind. Now, he's right up in behind there, probably deploying Kerrs. And then at that point, when he committed, then the gap just reduced. So there'll be an interesting debate between the drivers as to who was in the right and who was in the wrong. But the bottom line is, Jenson, if he's not looking in his mirrors, won't know that he's pulled up alongside him. He knows he's there.
They nearly wiped some pit boards out, and pieces of McLaren flying up against the protective barrier on the pit lane. Anthony Hamilton, Lewis's dad, but here because he's pulled Di Resta's manager rather than Lewis's dad as such. So no further action on that first contact for obvious reasons.
Is there any damage to the car?
Jenson, everything looks okay to us. We can see no damage.
Well, those two always say they're the best of friends, and it's a big love-in at McLaren. I've always thought it would only last a certain amount of time, that one. And I think there'll be some stern words afterwards. Lewis will say, I had such a better run than you. You must have seen me coming, and you moved over on me. And Jenson, we know what Jenson thinks. What is he doing?
Yeah, I don't think you'll ever get them agreeing on that one. But there's one thing that is a fact, and Lewis Hamilton is out of this Grand Prix.
Yeah, and just to confirm then, that contact between Hamilton and Webber down in the first corner is no longer under investigation for obvious reasons, because Hamilton is parked on the outside of turn 5. Mark Webber's got himself up into P9. There's Lewis. Crash helmet off, so normally if you're feeling a bit guilty, your crash helmet stays on, doesn't it?
Well, he'll have his point of view, and he's entitled to that, of course. And, you know, the bottom line is the incident between teammates, it's racing, isn't it? They're going to get up close and personal.
There's a lady you know.
Yes, Mrs. Polfant. There's
in the background,
Lisa, yeah,
in the foreground, Lisa Dennis. So Lewis is still under investigation, but for another incident now. And what did he say back in Monaco? It always seems to be me in the steward's office.
What would your view be on that? If you were a steward, do you think that's just a racing incident, or do you think that there needs to be looked further between the incident?
I think that Jens will say I couldn't see anything in my mirrors, and Lewis will say I came off the corner much faster. I'm surprised he didn't see me and give me room because I was going around the outside. I don't think there'll be a penalty, like a reprimand. Lewis has already got one reprimand this year. If you take 3 there for racing incidents, you'll get a 5-place grid drop at some point through the year. So Lewis is stacking them up if he's not careful.
Yeah, well, in the 3 racing laps we had, he had a contact with Webber. Looked like he almost had contact with Schumacher. I'm not sure if he did. And then, of course, his teammate.
Indeed. So now we've got this restart situation again. Let me explain it to you as they come down here. When the safety car does get called in, Vettel becomes the safety car effectively, the pace setter. But that line they've just crossed, that white line, is the first safety car line you can overtake after that point. So before that, it's not the start-finish line anymore, it's the first safety car line. And that is why Alonso as ever, brain fully engaged, had a run
How
at
big's
it.
the rain going to be?
Just we are expecting low intensity to begin with, low intensity rain.
But Pirelli have told me now, and several teams have told me, that the problem with those intermediates is if they drop out of the temperature window, they're very hard to get back again. They're very hard to build them up and get the grip out of them. If they are in the optimum sort of zone, 80, 90 degrees centigrade, they are much, much faster than the wet tyre as we see rain beginning to fall. Ted?
Yeah, that's because Jensen can see what I can see down here in the pit lane, and that's big black clouds approaching. The temperature's dropped, it's got chilly. I'm wishing I had a coat. The rain is coming, and Jensen's on the wrong tyres.
Yeah, as he's desperately trying to spin them up. So incident involving car 3, safety car speed limit is under investigation, which is Lewis Hamilton's third inquiry of the day. So 2 of them are since he dropped out of the race. So safety car speed limit, presumably at some point, he's must have been on the first safety car period, mustn't it?
Yeah,
where you're only allowed to do a certain speed between the sector points to make sure that...
Yeah, exactly. They have a time delta in the car which tells the driver a target time, and they drive to that. So he must have been out of
Thanks for
now.
that. And Jensen Button then has got the same inquiry going on. Safety car speed limit. So that's a target time you must not beat. Yeah, you've got to pace yourself not to beat the time.
What's the team radio?
I'm sure you've noticed you have an intermittent downshift problem. It's the paddle itself.
Okay,
Yep, I've got that.
Yeah, when we do a pit stop, Mark, when we get to that point, we're thinking of a steering wheel change.
Well, they do have a rocker system on the back of the steering wheel, but there's only one activation when you either pull down or flick away with your right hand.
But can you, on the Red Bull, can you change with either pedal? Can you push-pull on either side?
Well, you can, but it's on a rocker. So the switch
okay.
to activate down is only on
I'm
one
with
side,
you.
whether you pull or push. And that's why they'll say intermittent. It's maybe due to water getting in the system. There's no other reason why, you think these switches would either work or not work.
Safety car is in this lap, so when he comes in the pits then for that steering wheel change, do they have to switch the car off? Will the car engine stop when they pull the wheel off?
No, it won't. And the procedure, depending on what they want to do, is we see just a confirmation there.
But that's a matter of fact, isn't it, the safety car speed limit? So that surely is a guaranteed drive-through. They wouldn't be investigating it if they hadn't seen some data that says he was too fast between the
Sebastian,
points.
so we have Button who has pitted and fitted Inters. We'll keep a close eye on him.
Yeah, he might be closer than you think, Rocky, because I think he might be coming through the pit lane at some point with a penalty, but let's see. Let's not prejudge that. And the safety car lights are still on, but we know that it's in at the end of this lap as they're in turns 8 and 9, where we've seen so many drivers really struggling to slow the car down. And will Alonso be able to match Vettel's leap when he decides to take off? He went a bit too early last time.
Yeah, the rest of the pack are just too far back. Sebastian Vettel, as soon as he's got a gap after the end of turn 10, as soon as he thinks he's got a big enough gap to the safety car, which is now bolting away down the back straight, he can go for it. So all these guys need to be as close as possible.
Yeah.
And once again, he's getting big drive off the last time. Of course, they can't overtake until they cross the start-finish line.
Yeah, but it's hard to judge, isn't it? Because how do you judge whether you're going to catch the safety car or not? And there it is. It's a really tough one, but he's got it right this time. And Alonso's not as close as long as he slows down at the right point for the corner. Alonso's not challenging quite as hard as Michael Schumacher, trying to come up the inside of Nico Rosberg, and it gets away with it.
Yeah, but pointless to do that. He's not allowed to overtake until the start-finish line.
Now he can overtake on that first safety car line for sure.
Okay.
So you can do that down in there, and that's what it's all about. So Red Bull leads Ferrari, then the 2 Mercedes of Rosberg and Michael Schumacher. Kobayashi is right with them now. Then the 2 Renaults of Heidfeld and Petrov. Mark Webber got himself back up to 9th. Di Resta 10th now. Maldonado 11th. Button 12th and under investigation. Sutil 13th. Barrichello 14th. Buemi 15th. Trulli 16th. And there we saw on the right side was Lewis Hamilton watching this restart. Mark Webber very, very close behind Vitaly Petrov. Petrov having to go defensive. Webber will get a better run out of the corner, surely. He can get on the throttle earlier. Petrov will be slightly compromised by the line. Webber short shifts to try to get some traction. Not a lot of grip out there.
Well, he's coming across the racing line, which has been laying down rubber all weekend, and that's where you just spin up the tyres when you've got the wet tyre crossing over the rubber. So you can see desperately trying to keep off that racing line, but of course going through certain apexes you've got no choice.
Yeah, so as we thought then, a drive-through penalty for car 4. Jenson Button, who's just in front of Paul Di Resta, and Sutil there. In fact, that was, he's passed Di Resta somewhere, so it was Di Resta as well. So Button's really made some gains in this lap, but he's got a drive-through penalty for this safety car speed limit issue, and that means that he will, what will that cost him? About 20 seconds to just cruise through the pit lane. He's got to do it within 3 laps.
Yeah, it'll be less than that, Martin.
He's
It'll
doing
be about
it now.
12 seconds it'll cost him, is the time through the pit lane. So that will bring him back out, well, probably down in about 16th place, I would imagine, maybe even further down than that.
Yeah, so Jenson's doing 62 miles an hour as they're doing about 180 down the pit straight, and it's a long run. It's a very unusual pit lane here, where you feed into turn 2, not into the first corner, and he goes around the outside, slots in very nicely with Della Rosa, I think it was,
16th.
and down in 15th, 16th then for Button. So Heidfeld, Petrov, Mark Webber still in very close company, 7th, 8th and 9th. Again, Petrov feeling the need to get defensive, but the Red Bull just doesn't have the traction off that corner that the Renault has, it seems to me. Rosberg still leads Michael Schumacher then, and Di Resta just about hanging on to Mark Webber there, just going through the back of your picture now. And for sure the Renault's got better traction than Red Bull. That's unusual, isn't it?
Well, they were famous for having great traction in the past, and you used to think that was because of the weight distribution. They're very rare with weight distribution, but of course this year everyone's pegged within a 1%, so it's got to be something else. It can't be engine because they've both got the same power unit in behind, so apparently it's just starting to drizzle again out there, Martin.
Button then getting up close and personal with a Williams, I think it was Barrichello. He's passed Buemi. So Button likes those intermediate tyres, having now served his penalty straight away. He's back in the action, and there's Maldonado, Sutil, Barrichello, Button then ahead of Buemi, and Della Rosa is behind them as they're all desperately trying to find some grip. Very little spray out there now, as although in fact, if we look out of our window here, David, there's virtually a semi-dry line.
Well, there is, and this is great information for the front runners to watch Button, to watch his progress, to look at the sector times, and then there's no stress for the guys out front. They can just wait to see as he gets some good traction there on the wet run out of the hairpin there.
So you've got to balance that up now against what you think the weather's going to do, but looking at Button sailing past everybody, the front runners must be thinking time for a set of intermediates. Certainly with Webber you might as well do that now. He's stuck behind Petrov down in 9th place. There's a replay of he's gone round the outside then of Petrov. So in turn 2, Petrov comes back using that traction, comes back up the inside, has track position for 3. Does Webber slice across the front of him? He does indeed. So Webber then takes that position. This computer is very slow in updating itself today. So Webber then, and that's Button then going past Maldonado. He's absolutely flying. So surely time to be thinking about some intermediates. Now we've got a bit of a gap, 4-second gap in front of Button now, as we see, now we'll see just how fast he can be with a clear track, not having to overtake. And I think it's going to be a very fast lap indeed that Button's about to put in. So that contact with Hamilton might have played nicely into his hands, as luck would have it. We'll see how it all shakes out.
Yeah, as you were talking, as we can see, is that Barrichello and the Williams coming in. He's obviously decided to go for intermediates. But as you were talking, Martin, Fernando Alonso missed the apex of the last chicane. So he's gone straight across, so he'll need to be careful using his lap trigger that he hasn't gained any advantage, otherwise he could be in for a penalty.
So Button's gone across the line doing a 1:36.5, but we know that was passing a couple of cars. It's still 2 seconds slower than the leaders, so they're not going to want to blink too early on it, but you just have to look at that, David, don't you? You see the guy's got 20% more grip.
Well, he has, but the good thing for Sebastian Vettel at the moment with the 4-second lead is he doesn't need to be the first guy in. This isn't going to go from being damp to dry in one lap, so he's got a bit of a buffer there. He doesn't have to put himself in a risky situation.
That's a very good point, David, because there's a lot of talk of we might run the wets as long as we can and hope to go straight to slicks and miss Inters out altogether, as Rosberg still leads Schumacher and Kobayashi. Ted?
It is raining now, so what the people on the full wets are doing are waiting for them until this little spell finishes, which shouldn't be long, the radar says, and then they'll come in for intermediates. Rubens Barrichello did put on intermediates.
Thank you for that, Ted. Now, Button's half a second quicker than the leaders in the middle sector of the lap, so if it doesn't rain anymore, Jensen is looking very good indeed. Kobayashi then, that's Webber having a look at Heifeld down into the last corner, and let's keep an eye on Button's lap time towards as he finishes the lap. Two Mercs go through in the foreground. Look how quickly Button's closed in on Di Resta in the back of that pack, and as they go over the line, Button does a 32.9 and the leader does a 34.0. The people in front of him, 36 and 37, he's 4 seconds quicker on the intermediate tyres. So, well, what a difficult call, David.
Well, it's working for him at the moment. There's still a long way to go. There's a 20-second gap between where Jenson Button currently is and our race leader Sebastian Vettel. As we said, a normal pit stop, assuming a 4-second stop, will cost you about 16 seconds. So Sebastian doesn't want to leave it too much longer, especially if Jenson can get through this traffic.
And look, Webber's then past Heidfeld and through. So Mark Webber making his way past the two Renaults now. And we'll have a look at that 7th place then for him. But you see, the leaders have also got to think, those are the strategists on the pit wall, of how much time is Jenson going to lose in the traffic. All very well having the grip. He doesn't have the clear space on the track. As Paul Di Resta running in 10th place. Getting nicely out of shape, actually, just controlling the power over. No traction control on these cars anymore, although they do run different engine maps, don't they, to help them drive the cars in these conditions.
Yeah, they can adjust the torque characteristics of the engine and make it a little bit more drivable for them. Of course, short shift as well, as we see Fernando Alonso, first of the Ferraris to pit. We'll be seeing that soon, as we're going to get a replay of Mark Webber getting down the inside and Nick Heidfeld.
Yeah, so Webber through then, as we said, to 7th place. So Alonso and Rosberg pit for intermediate tyres. We're expecting to go on that beautiful Ferrari. And there you have it. You can still see a little bit of rain in the foreground. The Hamilton-Button incident will be investigated after the race, I'm seeing here on the screen. And that'll come up shortly. So it's a 4.4 stop. And Alonso feeds in. He's going to be right in between the two Renaults, providing he can find some traction on those new Inters. He's going to have to cut across the front of Petrov, though. It's no problem. He's got that one covered. So Alonso, you can just feed into the pack. And there, Button then goes around the outside of Di Resta. So much more grip on those Inters. And let's have a look at Button's lap time that time around. It was a 36.0 in the traffic. So it's still 22 seconds behind Vettel. Red Bull will be watching that closely.
Well, also they'll be looking at Adrian Sutil, who's currently down in 19th, but he's just gone purple. That means fastest in that last sector. So if a Force India is delivering the fastest lap time in intermediates, they surely have to be coming in. If not this lap, the lap after.
Well, is this a case of act in haste, repent at your leisure, or get on with it because you're losing out?
Well, as we saw in Monaco, we never thought someone could do 60 laps on a set of primes, and our race winner there did. So just because everyone else has come in, it doesn't mean that Sebastian Vettel, as he goes past our commentary box, so he's not in this lap. Maybe he feels comfortable in his tyres. He's just, what lap time's he going to do here? Let's just watch our screens. A 34.6, a couple of seconds off the fastest, but nonetheless.
Look at Alonso and Heidfeld just out of the pits on those intermediates, and Heidfeld yields. Alonso takes up the normal turn-in point. He should make the corner fine, and Button's right on the back of the two Renaults now. Massa's done a 34.2 up front on wet tyres as well, so they're still working for Vettel and Massa as all getting busy down into turn 1 with the two Renaults, and Button with a pair of Renaults to sort out before he can show us how good. And Rosberg, the fastest man in the final sector now, he's also out there on intermediates. So let's just confirm who's come in and put Inters on at the moment. Fernando Alonso, Jenson Button has just pitted. And then further down the field, we've got Barrichello and 4 or 5 others that have been in now and changed their tyres. But Button can't find his way past the traffic.
Well, Petrov started off in ice racing and ladder racing, I believe, in Russia. So he'll certainly know how to handle these conditions, but Jenson Button gets a much better drive off turn 7, and that is a fairly easy pass as he breaks down under the bridge into turn 8.
But look how hard it's raining, David.
It is now, yeah.
Surely Jenson's going to start struggling now. You've got heavy spray coming off and some aquaplaning there. The intermediates.
This the
We've got Webber
how much
going wide.
heavier the rain's going to get. What do you think about the tyres?
Well, it starts to be a little bit more oversteer, but it starts to rain now. But the rain is coming, so not sure it's a good idea to stop and put intermediates.
So Inters are now a liability. Jens will be lucky to get back to the pits. He'll have to come in for wet tyres, surely. We've got a safety car out. So safety car is deployed. I haven't seen any incidents at the moment. Nothing showing
We've
up.
got Fernando Alonso pitting under the safety car, so he's first to blink, and
He'll
when he
go back
gets-
to wets, presumably.
Yeah, indeed he will. But this is working out pretty well for Sebastian Vettel. Felipe Massa appeared to miss the opportunity to come in, and he went past.
So Alonso then, let's look at the colours on those. And Button does indeed pit. Well, that was short-lived, so by not reacting too quickly, Vettel and Massa, Kobayashi up front, Webber too, Heidfeld, Petrov, Di Resta, it's all worked out beautifully for them. So Vettel leads from Massa, Kobayashi, Webber, Heidfeld, Petrov 6th, Di Resta 7th. Michael Schumacher did pit and put the Inters on, and there he is. But why have we got a safety car?
I think it's just a downpour. I don't see any car stopped on the track looking at our circuit guide, and clearly the race director Charlie Whiting has preempted a big incident rather than waiting for it, which in fairness that's something that the drivers and the Driver Association are always pushing for. Don't wait for one of us to have a big aquaplaning crash before you then stick out the safety car.
Yeah, but that's not fair on those that have stayed on the full wet tyre anticipating the heavy rain, is it?
Well, you can send your complaints to FIA. Paris, I believe their offices are, Martin.
Yeah.
And we have one of the Red Bulls in. That's Sebastian Vettel has pitted.
So presumably, because the safety car hasn't picked him up yet, he's the race leader, he gets a free pit stop effectively, doesn't he?
Yep.
So they'll put a new set of wet tyres on that. He's got 3 sets available for the afternoon. And on they go. And because the safety car goes out and picks up the first car, hasn't picked up the leader yet, but the safety car's half a lap away. Quick thinking by Red Bull, they've worked out, as Webber pits as well in the sister Red Bull car, they've worked out that Vettel with a fresh set of wets comes out immediately behind Felipe Massa, who will now be leading the Grand Prix. So Vettel's got effectively, although he's lost track position, he's had a free pit stop, hasn't he?
Yeah, but Mark Webber, as we see there, pitting for his pit stop, putting another set of the full wets on, was very slow at the pit in. I wonder if he's got a problem. Maybe it was that down change issue. Did we see him change the steering wheel there at the pit stop?
Well, we think we did change the steering wheel. Would he be on this safety car speed limit thing, David? Would he have arrived a bit too fast and had to just lose some time as he comes out in front of the Mercedes there? And we'll see how this all unravels when the safety car picks them up, Ted.
No, it was actually the downshift problem that slowed Mark Webber down, as we know, with the steering wheel, and they did change the steering wheel. It's absolutely chucking it down in the pit lane now, and the people still on Inters are Buemi, D'Ambrosio, Sutil and Michael Schumacher.
Thanks, Ted. I think they might be trading those in anytime soon. I don't think they get much for them at the moment, but they might be just a ticket later on. Long way to go in this race. We're only on lap 21 of 70. Safety car is out, and the safety car will now pick up Felipe Massa, who leads the Grand Prix.
He's coming in. Felipe Massa has pitted.
Right, so he gets his free stop then, and then presumably he'll lose track position again to Vettel, who comes through the last chicane. And Massa then, big board to say, turn in here, everybody's waiting for you, pleased to see you. Very calm getaway there. So Massa then rejoins that rather curious pit lane. He can't cross the white line, but then he can go for it. But they can't just nail it now. They have to to a required speed so that the drivers are not encouraged almost when there's clearly an incident on track. They're not encouraged to nail it back to the pits, which is a little foolish, but it means that the safety car's quite a long time picking them up. So smart thinking by Red Bull and Ferrari. Kobayashi at the moment in second. Michael Schumacher fancies another go on the wets. He's handed back those shallow grooved intermediates. I'm driving all these tyres next week in Spain on the Pirelli test car, so we can give you a lot more information on exactly how it feels on these various tyres as Schumacher rejoins the track. And when they all line up behind the safety car, we'll see who's done what. So at the moment, in fact, Kobayashi's ahead of Massa because he didn't pit. So it's Vettel from Kobayashi, Massa.
Just an information from turn 9 to turn 13. It's undrivable. It's undrivable.
So that is that's basically the whole of this end of the racetrack that you're now looking at. Very handy helicam shot there to show us exactly the section of track. So that's a message from Vettel to the race director saying, don't restart this race anytime soon, as Al Jaswari has a little trip across the grass.
That must be soul destroying when you can't even stay on the track when you're on a safety car speed limit.
Yeah.
Well, you could debate whether it's been a good thing to have that safety car come out early or not, but we still have all the cars running. You see Lewis Hamilton finally make it back to his pit. Who's he being followed by? Is that Jonathan Neal, managing director of McLaren?
Let's have a look then. This has hurt Alonso, of course. Alonso, who's now made 2 stops because he did go quite early to those inters. As they're all queued up then, it is Vettel from Kobayashi, Massa, Heidfeld and Petrov, 4th and 5th for Renault. Di Resta, 6th. What a job he's doing. His first visit to this circuit. Challenging conditions in the extreme. Mark Webber is 7th. Fernando Alonso now down in 8th, having been running a strong 2nd. De La Rosa, 9th for the man, of course, who developed the Pirelli intermediate and wets. He was the Pirelli test driver.
Again, an update. There's so much water. You cannot restart the race like this because for the first car, it is already too dangerous. For the car behind, he doesn't see anything, so blind he goes into the water, aquaplanes, and smash the car.
Understood. We'll pass on the information.
Well, his engineer Rocky, he won't need to pass that information on. Charlie Whiting and his team up in race control will be hearing that radio broadcast. So the reason why Sebastian is so clear and specific in describing it's undrivable is that he knows that that message will be listened to. And as the lead car, then it's very difficult for the race director to do anything other than leave the safety car out in these conditions.
Health and safety gone mad? Or, I mean, you have to take Vettel at face value, don't you, on that?
Absolutely. It's lap 23 of 70 racing laps. There's no way he can reasonably expect there's going to be a safety car right to 75% distance where they could call the race or full distance. So, as we see Herbie Blash and Charlie Whiting there, looking a bit camera shy, but they're the men that will make the call.
And they have to rely on Ben Mailander driving the safety car and information from the drivers. And the problem they have up there is that every driver in that field, and we have 23 runners still, only Hamilton is out of the race. They've all got different perspectives on this, depending on where they are in the race, what tyres they've got on, and whether they want this race restarted or not. So they have to filter all that out somehow. Ted.
And is still chucking it down here on the pit straights, and no sign that it's going to clear anytime soon, Martin. Just a thought on the tread blocks. I've been having a look at the tyres when they came in, of the Red Bulls and the Ferraris. The tread blocks were actually okay, so plenty of tread left on the full wet tyre, and that's how the likes of Kobayashi, Heidfeld, Petrov and Di Resta have been able to stay out on track. But of course, those tread blocks will wear down, and they will have to pit sooner than the guys who put on fresh wet tyres.
Thank you for that, Ted. So it worked out well for Vettel particularly, and Massa to a large extent, except he's now got Kobayashi between him and the race leader. Kobayashi on the used tyres. So more intensity of rain expected.
It's said for 20 minutes at level 2, whatever that is. Presumably that's level 2. And then it's going to drop to level 1.
So just to remind you why Kobayashi's up in second place, he has not stopped at any time. He hasn't come in for fresh wets, or he didn't jump too early and go on to the Inters, because Button and Co were definitely showing Inters with the right tyres to be on. So the weather forecast was more important than the tyre choice, David, there.
It was, Martin. And I'm sorry, I was trying to do a little bit of research whilst you were entertaining our audience, so I didn't fully catch your point there. Can you
That was really very interesting. I'll tell you later. You'll be amazed when you hear it. So we're hearing that Sutil is still on intermediates, which is adventurous. He's at 13th at the moment.
Right down to the hairpin. The run up to the hairpin. So well, but you can't see anything at all. But it's just landing all the way.
Yeah, okay, Jensen, I understand. We'll pass that on to race control. And Jensen, we're expecting 20 more minutes of this intensity rain.
You've got to love the calm voice of the engineer delivering the message to the driver. Jenson Button currently running in 10th place. And if he's complaining like the race leader, then I think it's very unlikely, as the rain looks like it's actually getting heavier out there. Look at that.
The track's wet up this end now.
Absolutely.
That was Dave Robson there, Jensen's engineer. And I can see the safety car being out a while now, because looking out of our window up this end, when they stuck the safety car out there, you have to say out of our window here, it looked perfectly acceptable, didn't it? But it's now spread across the entire 2.7 miles of this semi-permanent racetrack. It's a road around the casino. Some of it is pure racetrack, the rest of it is used year-round. And any thought they might even throw a red like they did in Korea and just stop it for a while?
I think that's a possibility with this level of rain. It's you could argue we're not, well, red flag. There you go, Martin. They've responded to your information.
Yeah. I should do the lottery, shouldn't I? I might be able to win something on that. So, it is a red flag situation, and we will now go through that procedure that we saw 2 weeks ago in Monaco, where they have to have at least a 10-minute notice of a restart. The race is effectively suspended. They're not allowed to go in the pit lane, otherwise they'll take a penalty. The cars can be worked on the grid. They have to go to pole position and line up in race order. If there's any lapped runners in the mix, they get pulled over to the other side of the grid, and they'll be released early to go around and join the back of the queue when we get a restart. The mechanics lug, hundreds of mechanics lugging hundreds of kilos of equipment out onto the grid. We know that they can change tyres, and this is why under red flag conditions you can change tyres, because almost always it's about a red flag situation because of the inclement weather, isn't it?
Well, it is indeed. And it always never fails to amaze me in these situations, as we saw the various mechanics heading out to meet their cars on the grid. How few of them ever have a raincoat or anything. It's as if it comes as a huge surprise that you have wet weather in Formula One. You're going to, obviously the mechanics are all covered in fireproof overalls like the race driver, so that's going to gather some weight as they stand out there on the rain. So the safety car will bring them up to the red flag line, which they all have to line up in single file, but not quite doing that, are they?
Now, the drivers don't always know the rules at this point, do they? They're quite complex.
You can see the red flag line and Sebastian Vettel positioning himself right on it.
So the race then is suspended. Eddie Jordan, what do you think of this?
Well, there's no doubt about the safety aspect of stopping a race in this particular, because the rain was torrential. My issue is, guys, I really have an issue with the way the race was started. I cannot for the life of me believe that we started under a safety car. We were stolen almost, you know, the excitement of a front of a race under lights into the first corner here in those conditions. I do not accept that this race should have been started under the safety car. Maybe I'm probably the odd one out here on this. Yes, it's different when you're in the car than when you're on the pit wall, but if you're going to have the opportunity of pulling a fast one like we used to do in the past, then I just have a concern about the way it is at the moment.
Well, it seems that both yourself and Martin have a gripe with the rules, so maybe you can put both your letters in one envelope and save on the postage.
Yeah, I don't think I would have started under the safety car, but it looks like contact there, but it's just dirty, isn't it? And different levels of carbon, different types of carbon there on Vettel's car. But so now they've got to get those tyres in blankets as fast as they can. They were fresh wets. They've only got 3 sets of those. So what they might do, actually, at this point, David, is put the 3rd set on that are in the blankets, would you say, and then take those off and reheat them. But you don't want to cook them too long because the rubber just starts to cure, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, but they would have only have put those tyres on ahead of the race. So I think Ted has Christian Horner.
Yeah, it's just come down into the Red Bull garage. Christian, seems like they listened to Seb. It's almost like he was giving an interview on the radio, wasn't he, telling about the conditions down there?
We start the Grand Prix, and let me remind you of that then. Vettel will be at the front from Kobayashi in his Sauber. Massa, the man you're looking at, will start 3rd in line. Nick Heidfeld and Vitaly Petrov for Renault, 4th and 5th. Paul Di Resta for Force India, 6th. Mark Webber, 7th. Fernando Alonso, who took that gamble on intermediate tyres, and you can see the weather radar. Now, the previous show has disappeared, it said, so that's why it hasn't shown up. It's moved away, gone off the radars. So Alonso 8th, De La Rosa 9th for Sauber, standing in for Perez, as we've mentioned before. Rosberg 11th, Schumacher 12th, Sutil 13th, Al Jaswari for Toro Rosso 14th. Timo Glock up in 15th place for the Virgin Racing team. We didn't talk too much about that, but that's a very good effort from him. He didn't pit, and that's helped him enormously. Barrichello's pitted twice. He's in 16th. Liuzzi for Hispania 17th, Buemi 18th, Toro Rosso. Karthikeyan, Hispania 19th. Maldonado for Williams, who started this race 12th, pitted twice. He's back down in 20th place. And the 2 Lotus drivers, 21st and 22nd, Kovalainen and Trulli, did come in for a set of inters and paid a heavy price for that too. D'Ambrosio will line up 23rd and last in the queue that will follow the Mercedes-Benz SLS as they dry the dainty boots. They're like slippers, fireproof slippers basically you drive with. There's no space down in where the pedals are. You can't afford any extra material around your boots inside there to press. Just 2 pedals, almost a stop and go situation, throttle and brake. And you certainly don't want them to be to stick wet feet in there, otherwise they start sliding around on the pedals and particularly the bumps. So Sebastian Vettel, we've seen probably the driver got himself up on the pit wall and kept his head where he wanted it. I think he wasn't in any casual conversations much, was he? He seemed more focused on the pit wall, David.
Well, we did see him out the back of the garage briefly talking with Mark Webber, but then he was plugged in with all the engineers. The reason they set up there on the pit wall and get the headsets on is not that there was any noise there stopping them having a conversation, but that conversation has actually been back to their race control, if you like, or their operations room back in Milton Keynes. Same for McLaren back in Woking, and Ferrari, of course, at Fiorano. You see
now these heated visors, David, did you use those?
Yeah, I had a heated visor back in my day, and it plugs into its own little battery supply, which just helps keep a bit of heat on the inside of the visor. And you can see the radio cable there. Sorry, that's the visor cable, actually, isn't it, for that battery pack.
And they're double glazed as well, like you get on a lot of motorcycle helmets as well now, to stop any fogging.
Yeah.
Because when you get fog and damp inside there, you have to lift the visor to try and clear it away, and then you're really in trouble at that point, only you start sticking wet gloves in there. But you have to do it to see where you're going. You'll see a rip-off there on the visor of Felipe Massa, 2 or 3 either side. You dispatch those as you go through the race to clear mud and rubbish and flies and oil away from your visor. You just have to be careful you don't stick them down your own engine intake, which is just above the driver's head. You have to make sure you put them out the side of the car, and of course sometimes they then go into the radiator duct of the car behind.
Well, as you see, the few raindrops dropping in that puddle there, believe it or not, there was one guy who came up with a sort of rubber, like a window wiper, that they used in the back of the glove, so the driver could sort of do his own little rub across the visor. Unsurprisingly, that didn't take off.
Well, I've got one of my biking gloves, and they're very useful on biking gloves, I have to say. But I tend to stick a little bit under a couple of 100 miles an hour on that. Mark Webber then. He's had an eventful afternoon. I mean, we're looking at a total race time here of over 4 hours from the lights going out to the checkered flag drops, and that's assuming we get that far. Webber starts 7th. Quickly having to waterproof the notes there, the engineers. I would imagine there'll be several lessons learned, and in the debriefs on Monday and Tuesday, yeah, there'll be what would we do next time in these circumstances, because this, I don't remember this amount of red flag downtime.
No, that's no question about that. This is a very unusual situation we're seeing here in Canada, but surprisingly, this is not really part of the preparation for a Grand Prix weekend. As we saw that, just reminding ourselves the number of mechanics and engineers heading out there didn't even have jackets on, so everyone will be properly wet. Pretty cold out there actually, with air temperature of 18 degrees, and we're just hoping that those few drops of rain.
Okay, it's starting to rain a little bit harder, but apparently it will only last for 5 minutes.
Well, that answers the point I was going to make. Let's hope this rain doesn't last too long and we can get this race underway.
Ben Mailander then ready to lead more laps of a Grand Prix. And I got a Twitter question through, could he win the Grand Prix if he stays at the front? No, is the answer.
So someone looking for some betting tips. That won't work.
Nico Rosberg. Patiently waiting, as everybody has done, to get this race underway. We've been stationary for longer than a Grand Prix takes place, in over 2 hours. But we are expecting a little more rain. But it's quite bright out there, isn't it? It's quite a different scenario. And you were saying, David, just as it flicked up on screen, the race will restart at 10 minutes to the hour, that you felt the racing should be back underway again.
Yeah, there's no question that they can be running safely behind the safety car. It will be a safety car start. Everyone will be on those full wets, which not too much standing water out there now. Visibility is the big issue, and we've learned from a number of the drivers that we've interviewed that they were really struggling in the mid-pack. Michael Schumacher taking on the last little bit of fluid. Can't imagine he used much of the hydration he'd prepared ahead of the race.
How much fluid would you take in a weekend? What's your preparation on race day, let's say?
Well, on a normal race, you take on about 5 or 6 litres of fluid, which pretty much means that you're sort of constantly topping up, running up to the race. This is actually, when it's dry, quite a physical race because of the high G-forces that you have under braking. Obviously, in the wet, it's not as physical, but from a mental fatigue point of view, the concentration required is so much higher.
2 minutes to go to the restart of the 2011 Canadian Grand Prix, round 7 of this year's World Championship. We've seen lots of action earlier on and surprises, of course. To remind you, 23 of the 24 drivers will restart. Lewis Hamilton, after that contact with his teammate Jenson Button, is out of the race with car damage, parked around there at turn 5. They've dragged it back now, but he's not allowed to restart. And they now begin to take away the trolleys that include the generators and the heaters and all sorts of... Well, basically, it's quite interesting, actually, because there are certain parts of the car they have to heat up and other parts they have to cool down if they come back onto the grid. For example, the brakes need cooling so they don't boil up.
I think, Sebastian, one thing that would be useful is that when somebody goes on inters, for instance, I'll give you space, and you can say, to me, it's too wet for inters, or to me, I could go to inters, things like that. That helps us along.
So we see now, as I said to you earlier on, they use the 5 red lights that start the Grand Prix as a countdown in this phase to let the teams know where they are in the sequence. And everybody must be on the wet tyres, the full wet tyres. What can we see on that steering wheel?
Well, I presume that was Felipe Massa pushing his radio switch. Didn't hold the position long enough, but Maybe he was just communicating with his engineer.
Yes, you're not allowed to try and steal a march by restarting on intermediates. We saw back in Fuji a couple of years ago where Ferrari had to come in and change them. They were against the regulations. Actually, I'm surprised they weren't penalised, because it's absolutely clear you have to start on the full wet tyre if it's deemed to be. And the safety car then has pulled away, and we are back in racing conditions here on the Ile Notre Dame in the St. Lawrence Seaway on the outskirts of Montreal. And it's Sebastian Vettel who leads the crocodile that must now follow the safety car. And again, David, how long do you suspect that safety car will be out?
Well, I think the conditions are very similar to what we saw a couple of hours ago when the Grand Prix first got underway. So I would expect him to go once past, maybe maximum twice past, just to allow everyone to get their cars fully up to temperature. That may be a point that's been discussed that we've not heard on the radios, that because the cars have been sitting there, they would have been plugged in to keep engine temperatures and things like that, but there may be other aspects of the car that the drivers have communicated to Charlie Whiting that they want at least 1 or 2 laps behind the safety car before releasing.
And the fans jumping up and pointing, it's a racing car. Wow, we haven't seen one of those for a while. They are still in town, and we're getting ready, hopefully, for some full speed action sooner than later. And let's see, I mean, it's a completely different picture out there. It's almost as if the island was sinking, wasn't it, an hour ago? But it's emerged again. 2.7 miles this racetrack, 14 corners, 5 of them are left-handers, 9 of them are right-handers. This is the hairpin down at turn 10 that's seen so much action over the years, and the fans are always there to support the drivers. It's a wonderful feeling as a driver down there. They've thinned out a bit. Some people are out the back of the stands and waiting to come back in, or giving up on it. But that's the spray that Vettel's getting off the safety car. Your visor does clear slightly better than that, better curvature on it, and it streams off. But it's now keeping some temperature, or getting some temperature in those brakes. They can preheat the engines, they can obviously put the tyres in blankets. It's down to the driver to manually get some heat back in those brakes, and it's such a difficult decision, isn't it, to know where to brake, where, just how much grip and how much stopping power you're going to have when the race does get underway.
Yeah, it's a journey into the unknown. It was the past memory they had was of a certain level of water on the track. They're now on fresh tyres, which potentially will give more grip once you get all that release agent that allows them to be taken out of the molds once they're manufactured. So they'll be trying to evenly build up the heat between the front and rear tyre. Easy to get temperature in the rear tyre, of course. You can just unleash as much power as is possible and spin up the rear tyres, but getting heat in that front tyre is tricky. You don't want to be weaving too much, but you want to be building brake temperature. Brakes go up to about 1,000 degrees, which then radiates out into the wheel, into the air, or the nitrogen, I believe that it is, inside those tyres, and help maintain temperature.
Yes, a driver's job, especially in this phase, is all about heat management. They're heating engineers, aren't they, in terms of getting everything settled down where it needs to be.
Just a reminder, as we look at the rear wing, there'll be no DRS available. That's at the discretion of Charlie Whiting again, and the stewards up there, or Charlie Whiting actually, will decide when they can have that. So you won't be seeing any moving rear wings until a few laps into this race at least.
And thank you so much for staying with us back at home. We are transferring to BBC 2 at 9 p.m. local time, local to you in the UK. So please do transfer over with us very shortly, in a few minutes time. But there'll be an overlap of BBC 1 and BBC 2, as I understand it. But meanwhile then, we're waiting to see the all-important sign. Safety car in this lap. That is the wording I want to see up on the screen, as I'm sure you do at home. We're now in lap 28 of this 70-lap race. that should be done by Wednesday if we're lucky.
What's interesting, Martin, coming back to a point you made earlier, these high shots make it look completely clear. Get on with the racing. But I'm looking out the commentary box window, which is right down the back of the start-finish straight, and you lose the cars into the wall of spray. So the two camera angles can be so deceiving.
Yes, because as I said, the camera looks through 2 or 3 meters of spray as it's looking down, whereas you look through 100 meters of spray as you're following another car. It's just like being out on a foggy night and you can't see your hand in front of your face. There's a better idea of what you're talking about there, David, with that camera angle now through turn 5.
All right, the drivers will be getting warmed up now. Their heart rates will be climbing again back into their optimal working condition. Temperatures will all be stabilizing, and they'll all be nervously waiting for that message that safety car will be in. Is it going to be this lap? I don't think so. They're just coming through.
So what are they
8 and 9.
What are they looking for then? Presumably there's a bit of radio transmission going on that we're not party to at the moment.
Yeah.
The driver's giving a point of view, but what would you be looking for now to say whether they could go? Because it looks like it's ready to race to me.
Yeah, there's definitely not an issue there with standing water as we speak. It's about visibility. So we are not getting the radio transmissions from the drivers. So the guys in the middle here, emerging from that spray, will be presumably saying it's too wet, it's too much spray. Hopefully we'll not have too many more laps of this.
Shouldn't they drive accordingly then?
Yeah, well, you are absolutely right, but sometimes you need to save people from themselves. I think all these guys, when push came to shove, would go racing in any conditions. But they're strategists as well as race drivers, and they've got to use all the tools at their disposal to try and claim those 25 points. And if that means giving a bit of misinformation to the race director, then so be it.
Lap 29, Stefano Domenicali there, watching the screen intently. His drivers are Felipe Massa 3rd, Fernando Alonso 8th at the moment.
It's interesting looking out the commentary box there as we go on board with the safety car. Kobayashi looks ready for it. He was right up the rear underfloor of Sebastian Vettel going through that last chicane there, so he's good to go.
Yeah.
How's the visibility at the minute? How is the visibility?
Okay.
Short and sweet. 2 letters. It's okay. No sign yet that the safety car is in on this lap either. That was Massa then, who's 3rd on the road. So just to remind you that on a safety car restart, they can start overtaking after the first safety car line, which is before the last chicane. And we've got a Lotus then of Heikki Kovalainen cruising round at the back. It sounds like a slipping clutch to me, David, or something like that. He's revving the engine, but it's not moving forward. So is that a transmission issue there for Kovalainen?
Yeah, it doesn't sound like he's got any control over that, does it? It could be hydraulics.
He was running 21st, but he's now right at the back of the field. He's going through.
I don't have hardly any drive. Okay, copy that. Just stay in gear and box.
Yeah, so it's I suspect it's a slipping clutch. Safety car goes around again. Can Kovalainen coax the Lotus back to the pits? And just to remind you, all of these races count, laps count for the race behind the safety car. The clock is running again. We've got a maximum of 1 hour and 5 minutes of racing available to us with 40 laps to go. It's going to be nip and tuck, isn't it? Depends on the lap times that they're doing. And if we get any more heavy rain or safety car periods, as to whether we run out of time before we complete the 70 laps. And still, my eyes are focused on this computer screen in front of me, and still I don't see safety car in this lap. I see track temperature 17 degrees centigrade, air temperature 18 degrees centigrade, humidity 89%, and the pressure 1,007 millibars. and we'll see an increasingly drying track. Come on, get that safety car in the pit lane. Let's see what these drivers have got to show us.
Well, in my calculations, Martin, if they were doing the same lap times they were achieving before the initial red flag, we've got about 61 minutes of racing with an hour and 4, as we see the Lotus of Kovalainen driving into the pit lane. Not sure whether he'll be taking any further part in this race, but surely we must be getting close to the point where the safety car's coming in. And there we have it, Kovalainen being pushed back in. Disappointment for Lotus Renault. Having sat there for all that time and then being pushed back before the race starts, how frustrating must that be?
Yeah, all the time he's been sitting there with nothing to do. And now the transmission's gone on the missing list somewhere.
Right, I'm ready for a restart. How do you feel?
Yeah, I've been ready for some time. As I'm sure of the tens of millions of people who listen to us as we watch Michael Schumacher moving around behind his teammate Nico Rosberg, there 11th and 12th.
You hear them just riding the brake there in the run between the exit of turn 2 and turn 3, just trying to put a bit of heat into those brakes. You wouldn't normally do that, of course. No point running throttle and brake together. Just burns fuel, inefficient. It's very important to try and get as much heat in those brakes as possible, because when they start running down to that first corner, then they're going to have brakes at peak temperature.
And welcome to our BBC Two viewers. Thank you very much for staying with us and moving over to the BBC Two channel. We are still under safety car conditions. No sign that the safety car is coming in. Yeah, we're 31 laps into this race now, yet to make it to half distance. And welcome to our BBC Two viewers. Thank you very much for staying with us and moving over to the BBC Two channel. We are still under safety car conditions. No sign that the safety car is coming in. Yeah, we're 31 laps into this race now, yet to make it to half distance. And thank you very much to the BBC One viewers. We are now moving over to BBC Two as we await the safety car to make the decision. He goes round again.
Well,
so also on the BBC HD channel as well now, as you watch the line of 23 cars eagerly awaiting the restart of this Canadian Grand Prix. Just to remind you, Lewis Hamilton is out. He's the only retirement. Made contact with Jenson Button. If you've recently joined us, his teammate, and suspension damage as he hit the pit wall. Pieces of his car flying up and hitting the pit boards that the mechanics were holding out. Very close encounter with the pit wall. And Ted, what's the weather looking like from down there?
It's bright sunshine now in the pit lane, and more drivers I'm hearing on the team radio feed have been on the radio saying it's fine to get going.
Okay, the drivers think it's fine to get going. We think it's fine to get going, but that's not the message we're getting at the moment. And still no sign of any change in that. So just coasting around, left foot on the brake pedal, right foot on the loud pedal, trying to put some energy into those brakes and tyres. And presumably there are still drivers out there radioing in saying it's too wet, it's too wet. But look, we've got a semi-dry line down at the hairpin. surely the safety car's coming in on this lap. A little bit of standing water off the racing line. And as they head down what is normally a 200-mile-an-hour straight, and the safety car lights are not out, so he will take a right and a left to start yet another lap.
I don't think it's an issue, Martin, with the actual standing water. It must be just these guys down the back complaining of visibility, but...
Jenson, how is the track? Do you think it's ready to start racing?
Yeah, I think it's about there.
Okay, Jenson, thank you, I understand.
What do you say? I think it's about there.
He did indeed. Jensen's ready to go, and I think it's surely going to be this lap as they just run down into the first corner. They'll be visualizing the restart. Obviously, it's the concertina effect makes it difficult to really get up close as you come through that last chicane. As you pointed out, Martin, they can overtake into the chicane.
I think you should abseil down the outside of the commentary box there and go and stand in the middle of that chicane, David, and go wave your arms like, get off the track, safety car. We want to see some action. I can't see any standing water now at all on the racing line, especially as they're all on the extreme wet weather tyre. And you can hear that rough-sounding engine note, which is the exhaust blowing on the throttle, with the throttle being lifted off. Jenson there, there's Lewis there. Hello, Lewis, listening to the BBC commentary. But those systems are going to stop from the British Grand Prix onwards, where the teams are not allowed to do that. And a lot of people saying that could hurt Red Bull, and certainly going to change how the drivers attack the slow corners, because now they get on the throttle as early as they can to generate downforce. So that system going away, I think they're going to be limited to just 10% of open throttle after the British Grand Prix. Some manic rewriting of the codes for the engines there, I'd imagine, but that's not our problem today. Our problem today is the safety car is still on the racetrack. They're heading down the back straight again.
Well, amazingly, it seems the safety car is going to go around one more time. The lights are still flashing.
Bernd likes it out front there, doesn't he?
He does. He's going for some sort of laps-led record. I think he comfortably controls that as the only safety car driver we've had for more than a decade now. Okay, I feel it in my water, Martin. This lap, safety car in.
Not a pleasant thought. Yes, what you said on the last lap. You said that it was coming in on the last lap. There are the two Renaults, line astern, in fourth and fifth. They've had a very strong weekend. Safety car is in this lap, just is Jerome D'Ambrosio. So what are they going to put on that? They're putting another set.
Intermediates.
Yeah, set of inters then. So, you know, that feels wrong to me, that we've held the safety car out there and now you've got a driver going straight onto the inters, because that, to be honest, that's how the track looks.
Okay, Jens, how many more laps do you think before inters?
Probably only a few. On racing line, it's pretty good water. Let's just say if you're going to start the race now, you would start on the other tyre.
So Jensen's saying, right, if this was the start of the race proper, I would have the intermediates on, which he's experienced earlier on in the Grand Prix, that were working so well for him, but in a very narrow window of time.
Yeah. Well, let's see what Kobayashi can do. This is his moment. This is his big moment to try and see if he can lead this Grand Prix. I don't know how Sebastian Vettel feels. I think he'd be more comfortable having Massa right behind him.
So Vettel then takes over and becomes the safety car, effectively controlling the pace of the pack, got them all backed up at the hip, and it's so easy to run into another driver in those circumstances while you're trying to keep your tyres and brakes warm. And Vettel's bolted, he's going for it, he doesn't want Kobayashi anywhere near him as they arrive at the first safety car line. Massa's closer to Kobayashi, spray not too bad, Petrov on the right hand side of the track for Renault. And he's fighting up Paul Di Resta, who's down the outside. So Massa so close to Kobayashi. What are they going to do when they get down to turn one? Will Felipe Massa have a chance to take back that position? He's got the inside, but Kobayashi has got a better line, and he brakes later too. He just gauges his braking, and they're going to be so close into two. Great driving from Kobayashi, sensible for Massa in getting out of it. Mark Webber, you see there, in 7th place. So Kobayashi Schumacher's come in also then, as has Sutil, presumably for intermediate tyre. We've got a line of them. Glock, Barrichello, Buemi, all trying to take advantage of this situation. There they all go scampering out of the pit lane that feeds into the outside of turn 2, very unusually here at this racetrack. And which of the front runners then is going to try those intermediates again? They all got caught out last time, but at the moment the sky looks significantly clearer.
Well, interestingly, just looking there, it looks like Kobayashi's opened out a little bit the gap to Massa. We've got our timing screen here still showing us the fact that Massa was actually in front of him as he went across the start-finish line. He's obviously clearly behind him here, but all of that worked perfectly for Sebastian Vettel, who already has over a 1.5 second lead.
So Nico Rosberg there has fallen back down the field. Looks like he's had a drama somewhere. Vettel leads then at the end of this, towards the end of this first complete lap, as we just making half distance. So, and we've got an investigation going on as well. As there, we've got a Renner, we've got De Resta in the pits as well.
I think in as well.
Yeah. So a long wait for the safety car to get out of the way, and now the driver's saying the track's so dry, I'd like a set of intermediates, please. As Button pits as well. So another string of them. Heidfeld, De Resta, Button, De La Rosa, Al Jaswari, Maldonado. Fancy the other tyres as well, and off Button goes down the pit lane, 62 miles an hour until he gets to the speed line, and then he can let it go. So D'Ambrosio's got a drive-through penalty for having incorrect tyres, because presumably the safety car hadn't gone in at that time. So he was, when we've got the Force India there across the grass down at turn 3. It was Sutil, Jenson Button's right behind him. Look at this for a traffic jam. Michael Schumacher in there as well.
Yeah, coming back with his intermediate tyres. He's pitted, of course, so he's got a bit of traffic in front of him. He's got an HRT. Is that Karthikeyan? He'll be well past him in the braking area. Down into turn 8.
There you go.
And then you've got Jenson Button as well. Look at all that slow traffic he's got to make his way through. Who's got his next in his sights is that Sutil?
Yeah, we got a long line of cars. Sutil then coming around the outside of the Lotus of Jarno Trulli. Jenson Button keeping a watching brief, and Sutil goes in too deep. Button comes up the inside, makes the move stick. Sutil luckily saw him coming, and another stream of cars in the pits.
Yeah, indeed, we've got both the Ferraris in. They're going to have to queue up. Did I see that correctly? We've got Massa is in, and Alonso as well. Alonso's going to have to queue up behind. Well, he's just out of camera shot. Look at that. He's going to lose even more time.
Well spotted then, and nearly an unsafe release surely from Ferrari. So a bit of confusion. The Ferrari mechanic's looking down the pit lane like, what are you doing in here as well? But so Massa then out, still behind Kobayashi. Heidfeld right behind them too. It's all kicking off out there as the track begins to dry. Ted was down there.
And that was an absolute nightmare. The Ferrari boys did the best they could, but Fernando Alonso lost loads of places there, including to Nico Rosberg. So he'll have to regain those places out on track. But with the Virgin, that's a case of them not knowing the rules. When you start a race under the safety car or restart a race, you have to have the full wet tyres on.
Thank you for that, Ted. And we got a Ferrari off. It's Fernando Alonso's beats the Ferrari. In where is that? Is that
that's
the
second chicane?
Yeah,
that's in turn 3, I think. Am I seeing that correctly? I think that's that's exit of 3.
It looks
4.
like 3 and 4.
Indeed.
Safety car has been deployed. Our favourite car of the day gets another look into this race. And look,
and Button's got a puncture.
Yeah, left front. I wonder if there was contact. They shouldn't have been so close on the road, should they? But so Button, McLaren's. Yes, so
Vettel is pitted.
I wonder then if Jenson Button and Fernando Alonso got together somewhere, and Vettel then again making the best of some free space at the front. It just all keeps falling into place, doesn't it, for Red Bull and Sebastian Vettel. A set of intermediates go on, and again, effectively, that was as sweet as you want. Cream and almonds. That was beautiful pit stop, and he's got out front. It just... Now, let's have a look at this. So, yes, it was Button up the inside of Alonso. Alonso didn't want to yield, and contact. Well, that's Jenson's second contact of the afternoon, and we're going to see it now from behind the Mercedes. So Jenson up the inside of Fernando. Fernando says, "You're not coming through there." And Jensen said, "Well, you watch this then. I am coming through." But unfortunately, Jensen with a damaged left front. Was it just a puncture? Will his steering arm be damaged? And will that tyre do any further bodywork damage as he coaxes it back to the pits?
How did you see that, Martin? Because that looked like there was enough room for them both to get through, but then obviously as it tightened through the apex, there was the contact.
Well, if you've got any, if you're on the curb, you just slide off on the slippery paint. That is a vacated cockpit then for Fernando Alonso. I wondered it, because if he gets pushed out of there, he's in a dangerous position. He might be allowed to carry on from there. Surprised he got out, really. He would have just been ticking over there and hoping somebody might push him out of a dangerous position. But
I think he did back into the wall, though. There was some contact on the rear wing.
Yeah, true. Bits flicking off the McLaren of Button, who is in the pits for the 4th time, I believe it is, today. Make that 5. So it's 4 pit stops and a drive-through for Button for exceeding the speed limit behind the safety car early on, and Ted was down at McLaren.
The front suspension looks okay. The nose was damaged, as were the rims on the front left, but the mechanics and the chief mechanic had a look at it, and the front suspension on the left side's okay.
Don't worry, Jensen, the race is just over half over at the moment. So plenty of time for him to, in the way this race is unfolding, who knows what's going to happen. Here then is a replay. Take us through it, David.
Well, Jensen's fairly on the inside, and I think that Fernando was of the view that if I give him room as we go through the apex, I'll be on the right position for the left-hand part of that second part of the chicane. But I think it was always going to be a bit of a closing gap. He was relying a lot on the fact that Jensen was able to slow the car, so I think we're going to have to call that a racing incident.
But it's only one at a time through there. It's hard enough by yourself through there, isn't it? But, I mean...
Well, it is, but those are two highly skilled guys, so you'd like to imagine that they'd be able to find a way through it. Definitely Fernando gave him space to have his car in there. You could argue that he was sort of trying to recover a lost position, but that's what you're meant to do in racing situations.
Well, Fernando Alonso was 5th in the World Championship with 69 points coming into this Grand Prix, and he will score no points today. So let's remind you of the running order then. Now that's all shaken out. We've got 3 cars out of the race. Fernando Alonso, Heikki Kovalainen, Lewis Hamilton. Jensen Button is out, I believe, in last place now, which is 21st after his various dramas. He will catch the pack, and he will, though, be 21st. Vettel then, on lap 39, leads from Kobayashi in the Sauber. Felipe Massa 3rd for Ferrari. Nick Heidfeld 4th for Renault. Paul Di Resta now up to 5th for Force India. Mark Webber gains a place to 6th for Red Bull. Michael Schumacher, I've seen lots of overtakes from him, especially into turn 6. He's 7th. Petrov 8th for Renault. Rosberg 9th in the other Mercedes-Benz. Sutil in the 2nd. Force India is 10th. Rubens Barrichello is 11th. Maldonado for Williams, their Linus Stern, now the 2 Williams, is in 12th place. Al Jaswari and Buemi Toro Rosso also 13th and 14th. D'Ambrosio, we saw him come in for those intermediates earlier. I assume he's taken his penalty, but at the moment he's showing in 15th place. You're not allowed to take a penalty during the safety car period. He may have to take that afterwards. I don't know, I haven't been watching him. The incident is under investigation. We've got a replay going on here of cars
Massa
passing
Heidfeld.
Yeah,
what was going on there? Heidfeld must have passed him on track.
Yeah, but Massa was ahead of him, wasn't he, in the queue? So just to finish that off then, Glock 16th, De La Rosa back to 17th. He was 9th on the restart. Safety car will come in this lap. Jensen Button is, well, of course, Jensen's restricted to this safety car speed now, isn't he? So he'll struggle to catch the pack too much, but he might be there by the time they get underway. So Jensen way out back at the moment. So Karthikeyan and Liuzzi for Hispania still both running, and they're in 19th and 20th, and that then is the Button-Alonso incident under investigation that you call, David, as a racing incident.
But remarkably, that's the first time Alonso hasn't finished since Spa last year, so he's had a good run of getting to the checkered flag. I think we need to look more closely at that. You know, we need a few more camera angles to see whether he was just closing, he's just closing the door too much on Jenson. Because once he's committed, Jenson had the inside line. He can't make his car disappear all of a sudden just because Fernando wants to keep ahead.
I learned that lesson 2 weeks ago in Monaco when we saw different angles after the race of the Hamilton-Maldonado incident, and it looked completely different, didn't it? And Vettel bolts once more, Kobayashi asleep once more, but Massa is not. Massa's right with him, and to remind you, when they get to this safety car line, they can start doing some overtaking, but Kobayashi's late enough on the brakes. Heidfeld looking pretty punchy behind Massa as well, and lots of action going on down the field, but once again it's the world champion and the championship leader Sebastian Vettel who clears the line. He's a second ahead on the restart already.
And Jenson Button has just about caught the back of the snake as he crosses the line. He's a couple of seconds adrift, but he'll be right in amongst the action. He'll be looking to pick off those two HRTs that are bringing up the rear. As if he, once again, Sebastian Vettel, he just seems to be able to ace those restarts every time.
It says here that the track surface is slippery in Sector 11. It looks pretty slippery in all the sectors to me, as Mark Webber then fends off the Schumacher move down into turn 6, and the old Rainmeister himself, Michael Schumacher, looking pretty handy this afternoon.
Yeah, he'll be happy with the progress he's making. Currently in 7th place and running well offline under the bridge, looking for that area with least amount of rubber. Interesting that Mark Webber was absolutely on the normal racing line there, so why can he find grip there that Michael can?
Paul di Resta defending against Mark Webber too. Is so easy to lose a front wing, isn't it, in these circumstances, or just lock a brake. You have to brake late into that hairpin, otherwise you'll be mugged. But Michael Schumacher dropped back a little bit there. Mark Webber in the slipstream of Paul di Resta. Di Resta in only his 7th Grand Prix, doing a fine job and having a good look too at the back of Nick Heidfeld. So Vettel will cross the line shortly into lap 42, and his lead is 1.5 seconds over Kobayashi. Massa 3rd, Heidfeld 4th, Di Resta 5th, Webber 6th, Schumacher 7th, Petrov 8th, Sutil 9th now, Maldonado 10th for Williams, his teammate Barrichello just behind him.
Well, what's going to be interesting, just coming back to the Di Resta-Webber battle, is that Di Resta's top speed is about 4k quicker.
Let me know about rear right pressure, puncture.
It looks good at the moment still, Nico, still looks good.
So there's been some contact. Nico's worrying if he's got a puncture. So he obviously did have an incident somewhere, but we're about to... Are we about to see? Is it contact with Sutil or something restart, on the... Yeah. Oh, what I was talking about earlier on, isn't it? How you can break your ring, your front wing, and that was behind the safety car. So now Rosberg then has got Barrichello for company. This is a replay. Barrichello taking the position. All going horribly wrong for Nico Rosberg.
Well, it wasn't exactly going well for Adrian Sutil. You're going to lose your front wing end plate running into the back of a car.
Webber wide. Webber well out of shape on the outside. Michael Schumacher then is turn 11. He just cruises past Mark Webber. Too hot on the throttle. And Michael Schumacher takes over 6th place there from Mark Webber as Di Resta up the inside. Oh, damaged front wing. Paul, you've broken the front wing there. So Di Resta sort of half-heartedly left his front of his car in the action there, but surely that's going to give him horrible understeer. It is. Look at that, can barely get into turn 1.
Yeah. Well, the worst place for him to happen is just where he can't make the turn into the pit lane. He now has to do a full lap where he'll be losing chunks of time. So disappointment for Paul.
Inexperience there, because there was a half-hearted move, wasn't it? It's like a half-hearted football tackle. You can't do it. You've either got to make
it's
the
very
move.
wide in 5. He's got to be careful he doesn't get sucked out into the barrier there.
So Schumacher and Webber go through, and he will get a new front wing when he gets to the pits. He's going to be mid-pack. That's, as you say, as long as he doesn't throw it in the barriers. Meanwhile, he's still fighting there with Petrov but he needs to be careful because under braking he'll have, look, he's locked his wheel. He'll have so much less grip under braking. So Di Resta holding sort of midfield station there then. Petrov's past him now. And now Mark Webber coming back and Michael Schumacher. So the incident between Button and Alonso will be investigated after the race. We're reading, and what a great fight going on there. Two old hands, Michael Schumacher, Mark Webber in challenging conditions. Kobayashi holding Massa off very nicely indeed. And a long line of cars into that final chicane. Plenty of grip. They're pulling a bit of lateral through there now, David. They've got some grip. And this, I'm afraid, was just clumsy from Paul. We'll give him credit where it's due, but that's not good driving. There's no point in taking that risk, in my view.
That's one of the fastest points of the track. He's made his decision before braking to have a little sniff up the inside, and unfortunately, it was always going to be an ever-closing door.
But it was a half-hour. You've got to slice past them, haven't you? Stop them turning in, and then make your turn into the corner.
Well, that is true, but sometimes you've got to sort of position yourself where he's going to brake, it's wet, he will brake early, and I'm just going to brake that bit later. And you hope you sail down the inside and sort it all out before the apex. But we've got a drive-through penalty for car 14, which is Adrian Sutil overtaking behind the safety car. Well, I didn't see the overtake behind the safety car, but I definitely saw him ramming Nico Rosberg under the safety car, so he was going for all the penalties.
Nick Heidfeld then is about to have his mirrors full of Michael Schumacher and Mark Webber. Webber looking like, although he made that mistake at the hairpin to let Schumi through, that Red Bull doesn't appear to have great traction at any point in this race. Button's making his way back up to 15th at the moment from the back of the field.
That's interesting. Mark Webber running offline. When we watch him through this last chicane, he's struggling for drive off the hairpin. He's struggling for drive off the last chicane relative to Michael Schumacher. It's almost as if they're overheating those intermediate tyres relative to the Mercedes.
Well, I think that's a problem they've had. We've got so little knowledge about these tyres. They had a very wet test day in Barcelona. We had one practice session in Istanbul, and I think this is an adventure for everybody to see how far the tyres will go and what is the crossover point when you think about putting slicks on. And I think that's going to be a very, very difficult decision indeed.
Fernando Alonso, he's wandering back to his garage. I'm surprised he's not swamped by team personnel or even our man Ted, who's down there on the pit lane.
Yeah, well, I'm at McLaren. He's coming towards me. I don't know if he's going to shoot some dark looks in here or maybe come looking for a bit of afters. But at Mercedes...
Oh, let's get him out of the way. As quick as you can get past him, then we'll get on Vettel.
At Mercedes, they're readying some tyres because Michael Schumacher's been 10 laps on this set of tyres. He was the first one to pit on lap 34 for these Inters, and we believe these Inters only last 10 laps or so. So it might be the case that Michael's tyres have gone.
So the intermediates are beginning to overheat. The tread blocks move around, David, don't they, and generate extra heat. It's a different type of rubber compound.
Well, there's only 5 millimetres of tread depth on the intermediate tyre, but as Ted's just quite rightly said there, one of the projections that we've had from Pirelli and from the teams is Michael Schumacher really hits the curb on the way into that last chicane, and he's in front of Heidfeld. So Michael Schumacher is the man on the move right now. He's going to be in 4th place at the end of this lap.
With the new fastest lap of the Grand Prix on a 1:29.2, but remember in qualifying we were seeing times down in the 1:13s and 1:14, so we're still a long way away from a drive. DRS has now been enabled, so they've decided in race control that despite everybody being on wets when DRS is not normally allowed, they've decided the track is in a suitable condition that DRS is enabled. So and it's a double DRS here. If the measurement point is on the exit of the turn 10 hairpin, and you get one shot at it all the way down the third, I think it's 13 seconds of full throttle towards the final chicane, and then you get a second bite of DRS, even if you've overtaken the other driver, down to the first corner, which I think would be proper scary if you see them going down in there side by side, one with his rear wing open until he hits the brake pedal. But Nick Heidfeld then still fighting off Mark Webber, and now Petrov. We've got another investigation of De La Rosa and Heidfeld that the stewards are looking at. So hopefully young Paul is not going to...
It's Paul di Resta,
Paul di Resta,
actually. Yep.
Yeah, and hopefully Heidfeld and De La Rosa... di Resta, sorry, not going to get another drive through there. But it's Kobayashi then fighting off Massa, who's just been told to get on with it. Get him out, move him out of the way, was the exact instruction.
Well, Massa's done the fastest lap of the race so far, and we've got Mark Webber, who's certainly within the DRS activation point, as Nick Heidfeld gets a little bit off the dry line there. I can't imagine he was trying to cool his tyres in the run between the first and second chicane, but he's under a bit of trouble. Michael Schumacher's pulling away from them. That's allowing Petrov to close the gap.
Schumacher's first sector time, 24.7. That's 3/10 quicker even than the leader.
That was a bit careless by Mark there. He got a bit wide on the way into turn 6 there, and then he's dropped. Look, he's lost the gap now to Heidfeld. It's going to be difficult for him to get within 1 second when he gets into turn 10 to get into that activation point.
Yeah, the measurement point instead is on the exit of the turn 10 chicane, not on the way in, so you can't just banzai the brakes and then get the pleasure, as Webber's still looking for the damper part of the trace.
He's in the zone though. He's pulled it back.
Well, let's have a look on there. There's the white line, and then you're absolutely right, he's well within a second, but again, that Red Bull does not have the traction of the Renaults. We saw that in the earlier part of the race, and he did. He's got the rear wing wide open. He got Petrov all over his gearbox, and Webber then should have the straight line speed advantage with the DRS open, and Petrov then has to fall back in behind. So unfortunately for Petrov, his teammate hurt him there, because his fellow Renault driver Heidfeld enabled Webber to get that wing open, and as you saw, he had it open again down into turn 1, but for some reason the Red Bull, it's fast around the lap, but it doesn't have the traction in these difficult conditions, and we've seen that from the beginning of the afternoon.
The difficulty now, we're actually getting dry lines appearing around the track, but you just don't want to be the guy that risks getting those slick tyres on, and if you get a little bit offline, of course, it's so unforgiving, this place. So I suspect that we're going to... Massa.
Okay, apparently the last time you were pressing the button too early, so you didn't get the DRS for all the straight. Trying to activate it in the right point.
You're not allowed to pre-select the DRS, so you can't activate it until you've gone past the point that it's available to you. Schumacher's absolutely flying, just 10 seconds off the lead at the moment, but Vettel peerlessly out front, 5.5 seconds clear of Kobayashi, who's 1 second exactly clear of Felipe Massa, and the stewards are going to better cancel their planes home, I think, because they're going to be very busy tonight. There's Nico Rosberg and Adrian Sutil, for obviously Sutil presumably running into the back of him behind the safety car. Webber having a look at the back of Heidfeld. Webber can use the DRS down the pit straight as well, but he's just nowhere near him in the traction zone. Again, look at the rear wing wide open. Webber cleaning his visor as well at 185 miles an hour, trying to spot the braking point for this tricky turn 1. So those Renaults, as you said earlier on, David, they've always been good in these, and Jenson Button then up to P12 and right on the back of Maldonado and Al Jaswari. Michael Schumacher, new fastest lap of the race at 27.5, 1 minute 27.5, 4/10 quicker than even Vettel, who still leads by 5.5. Button up the inside, thinks better of it this time. That's what cost him dearly before, when he tried to go up the inside of Fernando Alonso there. It's like train tracks now, isn't it? Ooh, that looked a bit wide.
Maldonado was very wide there as he went into turn 5. He missed his turning point, and there we have Al Jaswari getting very wide as well on the exit.
But
turn 6 and 7. Yep, he's made got rid of Maldonado. He might have a little sniff down the inside, but it's quite bumpy under the bridge here into turn 8. So I think he'll get himself positioned on the run down to 10. Struggling for traction off the corner there relative to the Toro Rosso. So I expect to see him close up as we get through the braking here into turn 10. Right, is he
gone wide?
Yeah, no, he doesn't even need to be at the activation point. But he's pushed wide onto the water, so he would have struggled with traction off the turn. But there he can open his wing now,
which he hasn't done, has he? Yes, he has now. Now he's got some speed. Slipstream.
Buemi forcing him to the outside.
Oh, he's straight through.
Oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
If it ever can be on changeable conditions, he made it look easy. And he gets that other hit, as you quite rightly pointed out, and easily pulls away down into the first chicane.
Michael Schumacher's been off the track at turn 8 and continued, so he's made a mistake. He's responded now with a new fastest first sector to try to recover some of that ground. Vettel leads on lap 50 by 6.2 seconds from Kobayashi, who's a mere 0.8 ahead of Felipe Massa. Schumacher 10.5 seconds off the lead now in 4th place after that error on the previous lap. Vettel then, well, he seems to be coping with the tyres, but so careful on the throttle, short shifting, getting up into a higher gear not to generate wheel spin. He starts looking for the water on the side of the track, and of course that soon begins to disappear as the other drivers do the same thing. The coolant that he needs is just sitting there on the side of the racetrack. We've got a drive-through penalty for Paul Di Resta for causing an avoidable collision, unfortunately, again. Let's hear what Vettel says.
Sebastian, we'll need to know when we are within 3 laps of going to drive, because it will make a difference to our safety car reaction. Tell us when you think we're within 3 laps of going to dry.
I think we're not far off.
That's understood. Keep us updated.
Not far off. Mark Webber thinks he's right there already because he's in the pits, and I'm expecting a set of dries to go on that. They're the Supersoft option compound, and now we're going to see something.
That's a brave decision, but that's the sort of thing that could make a big difference here for Mark Webber this afternoon.
That's if he makes it to the racetrack. Fishtailing out of the pit lane. Ted.
Barrichello is also out on the Supersoft dry tyre, but the guinea pig was Adrian Sutil. He came in first and is tentative out there, and now Di Resta's just gone out on inters. He's serving his drive-through, and Toro Rosso's gone on dries as well. But check Sutil, see what his times are.
Well, I can tell you Sutil's times are not good. He's got a left rear puncture, right rear puncture.
This is Massa side by side with Kobayashi for second place, and Michael Schumacher. It looks like he's gone past a pair of them. So lots of action then, and absolutely wild oversteer there. So Schumacher has passed Massa and Kobayashi, and surely emerges in second place in the Grand Prix now. Schumacher absolutely flying, brilliant driving. And how much longer does he think he wants to go? Meanwhile, Vettel's done the fastest lap of the race on a 1:26.4, so he's still happy with the tyres. And we'll keep an eye on Webber, who's done his personal best middle sector of the Grand Prix on the slicks already. So he seems initially pretty happy. Schumacher, 11.6 seconds off the lead now. He's in first place. So this is where it all went wrong for Kobayashi. He's gone wide in turn 8. Contact there with Massa. Michael Schumacher sneaks up the inside while they're busy watching each other and takes second place in the Grand Prix.
Well, you're getting an overhead shot there again. Not much that Kobayashi could do other than get back on the track, and that just allows Michael the momentum. He would be grinning inside that helmet. This is by far and away, I think, his strongest performance to date this year.
Wunderbar.
Yeah.
And that then is Button, who presumably just pitted for slicks.
Indeed he has, as is Alguersuari, Maldonado, and we've got Glock in the pit as well.
That's Jensen's 6th trip through the pits today, once for a penalty and 5 times to change his tyres.
We've got Mark Webber, the first man who go on slicks, has now done his personal best in the first sector as well. It's only 4/10 away from the current fastest first sector, so I think we can expect all of the cars to be pitting now in this next lap.
That's Sutil, I think, with left rear suspension damage. We saw while Ted was updating us from the pit lane.
Michael Schumacher's in. Sorry, Martin, to shout over you. We've got Felipe Massa in as well. You can see from our commentary box. Kobayashi's gone past, so that could well be costly for the Sauber driver.
And look at this. Vettel's just done a 27.3. Kobayashi a 1:27.4. Red Bull has got a 13.6 second lead over Kobayashi as Michael Schumacher exits the pits, still ahead of Felipe Massa. Well, they made us wait for this action, but it's pretty good. Now we're getting into it.
Well, it is indeed, and Mark Webber has gone fastest in the middle sector, so it is absolutely clear as we see Michael Schumacher and Felipe Massa struggling for traction out of the pit lane. Of course, they're having to run on wet track, losing temperature from the slick tyres.
1:24.6 for Webber. That's massively quicker than the leader. Vettel has to come in this lap. He has no option, surely. Schumacher then out on the slicks, now behind Rosberg, who's still on the intermediates, and the Hispania just either frightened off the road or getting out of the way there. Schumacher on a charge. He pitted from second place Petrov hasn't pitted. He's up in third at the moment. And Webber absolutely flying. Michael getting... And we got a damaged nose, front wing there on Felipe Massa as Mark Webber goes through and is setting fastest sector after fastest sector. Cars off all over the place as they're trying to find grip on their tyres. And so Felipe Massa's been in the wars with somebody or something rather firmer than the front, and the race leader pits then for a fresh set of super soft tyres. They do not have to use both compounds in this race now because it's been a wet race. That regulation falls away, so they can keep running the soft tyre till the end of the Grand Prix, if we ever get to the end of this Grand Prix. And we watch Heidfeld then coming down into the final corner, and it looks pretty certain that Mass has been in the wall, doesn't it, with that amount of damage.
Well, here we are on the exit of turn 7, and he gets out onto the water, and of course on the slick tyres he's just aquaplaned.
Yeah.
And that was him trying to get past an HRT.
Yeah, zooming past, and he basically just bounced down the wall.
Yeah, well, meanwhile they changed the front wing. I tell you, there's some tasty action brewing between Mark Webber and Michael Schumacher. Mark was only 0.4 of a second behind Michael last time past, and there we are joining that action. So would he risk running off the line? Would these engineers tell him, be careful if you try and do an Alonso, sorry?
Yeah. Button's done the fastest lap of the race, 1:22.7. That's still 10 seconds slower than pole position. They're still carrying a reasonable amount of fuel, probably a third of a tank of fuel, as we now once again get the battle between Michael Schumacher and Mark Webber. Button's absolutely flying out there in 7th place. Let me just remind you, you can see at the bottom of your screen as the Kerrs are working nicely out there. Still working for Webber, who did not have that facility in qualifying. Webber with his rear wing wide open, comes to the inside for the final chicane, thinks better of it, ducks back. Will he have to go across the runoff? He does indeed. It'll be so slow on the exit across the wet track. So Mark Webber then just getting a little bit too hot. Of course, you arrive a bit faster, David, with that wing open. You've got to brake slightly earlier.
Well, he'll gain about 15 kilometres an hour, then he'll have the slipstream as well, but can't help but feel like he might have shot his bolt a bit too early there. You know, you've no point showing your hand to Michael. You either pass him or you stay in your, keep your car on line. So it'll be interesting to see. I expect he'll get back on Michael's gearbox pretty quickly. He is in the faster car in these dry conditions. Well, on the racing line, it's dry anyway.
So we're on lap 55 of 70 then. Somehow we just got 15 laps to go. That's gone quickly, hasn't it? Vettel leads on his out lap was a 1:32, including that pit stop, but he had a 10.7 second lead over Michael then. That's about where it was before the pit stop phase. Webber up into third. Kobayashi showing fourth at the moment. Button now in P5, streaming back through the field as the drivers dance these cars across the wet patches, desperately trying to find some purchase in the racetrack, get those slick tyres biting into the tarmac, and so easy here to lock a brake and just slam into the driver in front of you. So Button then absolutely flying out there. His current sector time, just on the lap he's on, is a second and a half faster than Vettel, who's leading, and he's 20 seconds off the leader at the moment. Button is flying. Let's keep an eye on that. So is Mark Webber now. He's just 0.3 behind Michael Schumacher. Schumacher's closed the gap to Vettel by 2 seconds on that lap. Vettel extremely cautious on his first flying lap. The problem is now the damp patch is offline, David.
Yeah, getting offline, as we've seen from Felipe Massa.
He's going to touch him.
Tonkat, he's broken his front wing. It's like none of these guys know where their front wing is.
Oh,
right.
There's a surprise.
Yeah, thankfully there's plenty of runoff down there as he parks it nicely out the way, so I don't expect any safety car unless there's some debris on the track. But
yeah, that's a scary thing when you run over your own front wing, because you've got no brakes, no front wing, all at the same time. So it's Nick Heidfeld then. He got on the throttle. He got so much grip from that Renault in the slow corners. He just plain ran into the back of him as he was waiting for Kobayashi to pick the throttle up. It looks silly, but it's actually very easy to do, isn't it? I've done it myself.
It is, and that was a little bit scary, but thankfully one of the areas on the track where there is a runoff area, he was able to go down. It'll be interesting to see if Kobayashi's got any damage to the rear of his car. Obviously massively frustrating for the Renault guys because they were looking for a good result here this weekend. But once again, we're back with a battle with Mark Webber and Michael Schumacher. But can he get offline to pull a pass?
Look at Button catching them like crazy, though. He's P4 now. So
Well,
Button then on a 20.2. He's 2 seconds quicker than the leader, Vettel. Bit of traffic ahead of him with, I think it's D'Ambrosio in the Virgin, and Jensen's got to tiptoe so carefully off the racing line as they see the yellow flags there, and bits of it's so easy to pick up a puncture.
Well, it is, and normally that would be enough for them to throw a safety car for fear of carbon things. And yes, we've got a safety car out.
I hope they've refueled that safety car in the meantime. It's done a lot of laps today, but I think that's a sensible move actually, and because they've really, have they picked up the leaders? No. The leader is down. Well, of course, this is interesting. This works beautifully, doesn't it? Because it just closes the pack up. Schumacher, Webber and Button, who are all lapping significantly faster than Sebastian Vettel, will now cruise up right behind him for yet another safety car restart. Ted.
Well, it is good, Martin, as Jarno Trulli just comes out the pits on a new set of dry tyres, super soft dry tyres. But for Jenson Button, that's bad, because the reason he was going so quickly was because he was the first one onto this tyre, on lap 51, onto the dry tyre. That's why he had good heat in it. We've seen from qualifying why it takes so long for actually to get heat in. So Jenson was flying, as you say, and overtook Heidfeld. Vettel struggling to get temperature, but now that fight's been neutralised.
Well, I still think Jenson will be quite... It was 13 seconds adrift of the leader, albeit catching at 2 seconds a lap. And a lot of that work's now going to be done for him as they pick their way through the debris. And all the sharp edges of the broken carbon fibre that gets sent up in the sky like confetti when it's broken up as it travelled underneath the Renault. As Heidfeld's Renault digested its own front wing. And you can hear that's the rough sanding engines where they go onto 4 cylinders for better traction through the exit, and they're feeding the underneath of the car with hot exhaust gases to help the downforce. And yet another device to clear cars off the track. It's an old-fashioned style circuit. There's no real service road here. Barriers are right alongside the racetrack. And let's just remind ourselves then of where everybody's at while it calms down. Still, they haven't picked up Vettel with the safety car. They're about to do so. They let the lapped runners go through, and this is a replay of the Heidfeld incident.
Yeah, it looks like Kobayashi got a little bit wide as he went through turn 2, hesitated to full power. Heidfeld, on the other hand, absolutely aced the apex and said, right, I'll get on the power, and it didn't happen. And then the end result, of course, was the front wing fell under the car and sent him as a passenger. So here again, look, he gets wide onto the wet, and Nick Heidfeld hasn't recognised that.
Well, don't forget, they now throttle on in the slow corners. That's why, David, that you know, you've got this unusual situation. You'd never used to go through a slow corner with your foot buried into the throttle.
Randomly nearly stopped in turn 2. I don't know what he was doing there.
Okay, Nick, understood.
Well, I think we can tell him what he was doing. He had 2 wheels out on the damp patch. Yeah. He'd made a mistake.
But I know a lot of drivers will say that well, he brake tested me. But we don't believe that the Sauber has the hot blown exhaust. They don't use that throttle on in the slow corner. I feel very sorry for Nick Heidfeld there, but because all he was trying to do was use the grip of his car. And we're on lap 59. Vettel leads from Schumacher, Webber 3rd, Button 4th, Kobayashi 5th, Petrov 6th. Barrichello now 7th. We've got a Marshall.
That's not pretty, is it? You haven't rehearsed that.
Earth's going on.
He decided to not pick up anything. He got halfway out in the middle of the track.
Where's all the brooms that were sweeping the water away an hour ago? Where were we? Button 4th, Kobayashi 5th, Petrov 6th, Barrichello 7th, Al Jaswari 8th, Rosberg 9th, Maldonado 10th in the final points paying position. Felipe Massa has recovered from that nose change up in 11th, Buemi 12th, De La Rosa 13th, Di Resta 14th after his various penalties. Glock 15th, D'Ambrosio 16th, Liuzzi 17th, Karthikeyan 18th, Trulli 19th, and out of the Grand Prix then, you did just see a caption, I'll run through it again. Nick Heidfeld, Adrian Sutil, Fernando Alonso, Heikki Kovalainen, Lewis Hamilton. We have 19 runners somehow remaining in this Grand Prix.
And I think we have got ourselves an incredible grandstand finish to this race, because Sebastian Vettel looks like he's got the pace to control things there. But under normal dry weather conditions, which the racing line is, Michael Schumacher has not been as quick as Mark Webber or Jenson Button. The man on the move just before that safety car was Jenson Button. The pace was incredible. So does Sebastian Vettel have enough in hand to open out a little bit of a gap? Does Michael Schumacher have enough to keep it on the racing line and make it difficult for Mark Webber and Jenson Button? So Mark's in a situation where before he was the predator, he's now become the prey.
I think it's the third time here that we've had 4 safety cars in this Grand Prix. I think 2007 was the last time, but we haven't finished yet. There's still plenty of debris about there, David, especially as that's an overtaking spot down into 3, although it's still a little bit damp out there.
What is the, which version is that between Webber and Button? It's Glock is currently between.
Yeah, and they don't get waved past now, do they?
No.
Like they used to. It took too long. They used to wave. I think it's possibly, safety car's in this lap. It's possibly still in the regulations, but they don't.
How long did Vettel and the 2 cars in front been on the slicks? Okay, Vettel put his slicks on 2 laps after us. Jenson Webber 1 lap before us. And
I suppose Jenson was hoping that they put their tyres on several laps before him, but that's not the case. They're all on pretty much the same age of tyres. They won't have obviously hit them as hard as they would under normal dry conditions.
Well, the man they used to call the new Schumacher, who has very much become the current Sebastian Vettel, fending off. He leads the restart for the 4th time this afternoon, fending off a man who must have been and remains a great hero to him, Michael Schumacher, in 2nd place. And he's legged it again off the hairpin, which he likes to do. He's given the safety car enough of a margin. He wants to get down to that safety car line without Michael Schumacher. DRS is not enabled at this time. Schumacher down the outside there. And yellow flags waving for some reason, presumably because the safety car was still in range. But green flags now, and away they go. And we wait 2 laps then for the DRS to be enabled after a safety car restart. And Button has cleared the back marker, and Webber again all over the back of Michael Schumacher. This is going to be a titanic scrap, isn't it? But Vettel was being too cautious before on the slicks. He was out front, but they were catching him hand over fist. Michael with 2 wheels on the damp as he goes through turn 5.
Well, he's got mirrors full of Mark Webber, and Mark Webber's soon to have a mirror full of Jenson Button. So as you say, Martin, these first 2 laps there'll be no DRS, so there's no special tools to give you that extra speed on the straight, so you're going to have to do it the old-fashioned way if you can pull a pass.
Button's up in 4th place. He's been through the pit lane 6 times this afternoon. Somebody's going to have to sit him down at the end and just explain to him what on earth went on. But Webber so close to Michael Schumacher, but gets on the brakes earlier. Schumacher very late on the brakes there. And Jenson Button surely would have smelled a bit of an opportunity there with Webber braking so early.
Yeah, but it's damp on the inside, so he knows he's got 9 laps left. He doesn't need to go risking it on this lap.
No DRS yet until we've had 2 laps of the restart. Not enabled. Schumacher surely driving the best race since his comeback. Fending off now Webber and Button as they cross the line. Vettel's pulled out a 2.2 second lead as these 3 are busy watching each other.
Yeah, this seems to be that Michael has really good drive off the corners. He may not be quite as quick in the turns. You see Mark Webber there, just actually going against what I was saying on the run out of turn 2. But crucially, at the latter part of the lap, where the DRS activation point is, that down at turn 10, Michael Schumacher seems to be able to get off that turn well. But the real issue now is Mark Webber has got Jenson Button all over the back of him.
It's going to be a damn dear move, isn't it, on the damp stuff for somebody to have a go. But it's really hard to stay in the train tracks, the narrow, dry line, when you're so close behind another driver.
Well, that's it. You run the car out right to the edge of that damp patch, but you just don't want to touch, even by 10 millimetres, because you know it's going to suck you into it, and then your history. Look at the amount of water off the racing line. There's Corinna Schumacher, Michael's wife. She doesn't want to be watched. She wants to watch the television. Is this going to be the dream that everyone imagined when Michael Schumacher made his comeback, that he'd be up on podiums?
8 laps to go as they start this new lap. Michael Schumacher then, he so badly wants a comeback podium, doesn't he, to justify his decision. And the yellow flags are waving. What's going on in turns 1 or 2? Not see anything at the moment. Presumably somebody's just spun and recovered. The yellows are still out. Now they've got green.
Well, there's something in the background in turn 2. We could see some activity from the marshals, but not enough for the director to get onto it.
Car 12 has stopped in there, which is Maldonado.
Okay.
Maldonado has stopped somewhere, having just pitted actually in the first part of the lap. Schumacher's now 3 seconds behind Vettel. Vettel got on with it on this restart, and it's now, I think, a question of which two of these three are going to be. Oh, look at that, it's so wide, but there's enough grip out there. Schumacher really ringing it out.
He was extremely wide there, but also Mark Webber, and it looked like he had to get out of the power slightly on the run down to turn 10. And you've got to say, yeah, DRS is active.
So now we're going to see how effective it is. Remember, it's 2 straights here, from the hairpin down to the final chicane, and again all the way down into the first corner. And Michael Schumacher is a sitting target. Look at the difference it's making. Webber goes down the outside. He's locked his left front. Can he get through the... Well,
he's going to have to give that position back. He'll have to allow Michael back past. But look at Jenson Button's got DRS, presumably.
Yes, he will have it because he was close behind, but Button then, Webber must give that place back, I would say, otherwise he'll get a penalty. He surely gained the place by as they clear Maldonado's Williams away. And there he goes, but he's got to not let Button through at the same time. Can he do that? Can he measure it? He can!
He did. This is great stuff.
Clever driving and thinking there by Mark Webber, and we start again. And if he can get anywhere near Michael, he gets the bonus of the DRS yet again.
Indeed, and that's exactly what Jenson Button should have done, if we remember way back to Melbourne, the first Grand Prix, when he passed Felipe Massa.
Don't take the risk, just give the place back and worry about it later. Michael definitely got some good drive out of that corner, hasn't he?
Oh, he's so brave running out onto that damp patch, and look at the gap it gives him on the run down to turn 10. And crucially, he needs that 1 second window. Mark's now shown his colours. He knows that he can get down the outside, but is he in the activation point? Let's see. We can see the white line there on the screen, and his wing pops open, and presumably Jenson Button's as well.
Yeah, watch the closing speeds. Those two in the slipstream. And, well, we saw Michael, was it last year, where he just knocked the front wing?
Mark Webber misses the corner again.
Oh, he's nearly lost it. Webber nearly loses it, and Button sails past him, somehow finding enough grip. So Mark Webber pushing his luck. Yellow flags waving in turn 1, but Button had the move done well before then. Webber drops back to 4th place. Vettel leads Schumacher by 3.8 from now Jenson Button. So Webber got in too hot, took to the escape road, did not gain a place, but nearly dropped it through the exit. And Jenson said, I'll have some of that, thank you, I'm out of here. So now another replay then of the same move.
This is brave stuff from Jenson, because he pulls the car over onto the damp part of the track.
Well, we saw what happened to Felipe Massa when he pulled that move, didn't we? And now it's Jenson chasing down Michael Schumacher, and he will get the advantage of the DRS rear wing, but not yet. But Jenson feeling particularly punchy by the looks of it. If he's within 1 second as he exits this corner across that line now, he gets the advantage of the rear wing, and it will pop open when they go over this next line. And surely he's got a great chance of coasting past what Schumacher's looking in his mirror. Button goes the long way round. Is he ahead of him? Yes, he is. Button up into 2nd place. Now he can use the wing again. Whether you think it's right or not, I'm a bit surprised by this double DRS where you get a second bite at it. Button didn't use it though, did he? He didn't actually use it. He used it just at the end.
It looked like it was a malfunction. Remember we saw that on Alonso in China, where it just popped up at a strange point. So anyway, he's got the pass done, and now
with a new fastest lap of the race, and lapping 1.5 seconds faster than leader Vettel, while overtaking Michael Schumacher, albeit. And look at that, Vettel's only...
he's only 3 seconds in front. So this race is not over for the win, and it's certainly not over for the last step on the podium. Michael Schumacher there, he did all he could, he made his move early, and then look at the difference in the speed when you've got DRS in the slipstream. Don't panic, kids.
And Gene Braun there, seeing their man slip down to third, but he's still in a podium position. But how much longer for as Mark Webber homes in once more, and Button is absolutely flying. He's 1.3 seconds quicker halfway around the current lap as he starts homing in. Vettel's going to really have to show us what he's got now. Vettel's done a personal best first and second sector and is miles slower than that man. Second place, Jenson Button, who loves these conditions, and Webber then with his rear wing available. Schumacher clumping across the curbs there, so I think he's still got his hands full as Mark Webber with 4 to go. Michael Schumacher then keeping Webber back. Track, it still says the track slippery in sector 11 down there, presumably. And look at that, Button 1.5 seconds quicker than Vettel on that last lap alone. The gap just 1.6. He'll be right on the back of him at the end of this lap.
Well, hopefully the camera will pick that up for us. It's an interesting battle here for third and fourth, but what can Button do? He can see Vettel, he can smell the victory. Is there enough time left?
We've got 4 minutes remaining. We're not going to get all the, well, are we going to get all the laps in? It's going to be so close between the time, the 2-hour time limit, and it might just save Vettel if we're 1 lap short of the distance. Showing a slippery track flag there, and they've matched each other in the middle sector, and I don't think Button's close enough to get the advantage of the DRS. Vettel watching in the mirror, the rear wing closed, but we're wondering if there's any. And in the background, Schumacher defending hard against Webber. Schumacher defending incredibly hard, and Webber's through. Webber's through. Can he keep it on the road this time? He does indeed. Schumacher drops down to 4th place, and I think he came across the runoff area. So Schumacher 4th, Webber 3rd, Button a new fastest lap of the race, 1:17.5. The gap down to 1.3. Crucially, just outside the 1 second gap that will give him the rear wing activation. There's 3 minutes to go and 3 laps. So are we going to run out of time before we run out of laps? Schumacher there once again without the rear wing, and without particularly did go across the escape road actually, but he does not have to yield anything on that one. He lost a place anyway. Let's look at the sector times. Vettel's just done his fastest of the race. He's responded to the closing McLaren. A beautiful drive from the 6 times through the pits, Jenson Button. And another incident is going to be looked at after the race. Going to be a long queue of drivers outside the steward's office. Is